1 minute, you want 1 minute? You're ready? Good. All right, we have, looks like the board is assembled, yes?
Semi-assembled.
There's Jim and Drew and Karina. We're getting quite a bit of feedback, yes? Okay. So, I don't know if you want to wait, that's probably a little bit less, we'll see. We've got specific mic directions. So I will call this 3 o'clock, Granville County Board of Commissioners Retreat, February 19th, and we're going to continue on to the 23rd to order here at the Granville County Convention and Expo Center. So I'm going to call on Commissioner Jimmy Gooch, Vice Chairman of the Board, to lead our invocation and Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay. Will y'all join me in prayer, please? Our Heavenly Father, we humbly come before you with thankful hearts for all the blessings you've allowed us to enjoy. We ask for guidance, patience, and understanding for all of us gathered here today to hear the needs in our county. Father, we pray for wisdom and guidance throughout this budget process. We pray for understanding from those who need more funding and help them to understand how tax increases will impact our citizens. Father, we pray for our citizens to see the needs of our county agencies and departments and help them understand what must be done to meet those needs. Lord, you know how we must make difficult decisions that lead to sacrifices having to be made by all those involved. We ask for patience and understanding from those we serve. With our faith in you, we know you will guide us through all challenges. All of this we ask in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen. Amen. If you will, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Gooch, for those words and for the pledge. So we lead off by saying welcome. For those of you behind us, which is weird for me, being in front of people speaking, apologize for not wanting to always turn around, but we're going to conduct business as usual. We've got a very full agenda. As you'll see, playing out till tonight, I'm sure we're going to shoot for the 8:15 mark, but we'll see if we can achieve that. I don't want to cut anybody short. This is a planning retreat, as a stated purpose for this meeting. There are no dumb questions. Let's have them out. Let's talk about things. Let's look at the future. Let's not report this as the commissioner said, this is the final answer. No, this is the beginning. Let's have conversation. Let's have dialogue. We've got some folks that are coming tonight with our legislative team. We're going to have some dinner. Obviously, our fire departments are going to be here. A lot of our departments and services you're going to hear from. All of our municipalities will be represented. So we've already had, I know Representative Winslow is unexpectedly having to travel, so he won't be here when we get to our legislative adults. I'll just announce that now, in case I forget later. But with that, I will turn it over to our manager, Mr. Drew Cummings, and he'll lead us through.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome to all the commissioners and staff and members of the public who are here today. I appreciate, first of all the people who have helped plan and prepare this event for us, Deborah and Karen and Karina and others who've helped make these things run, and also appreciate in advance all the folks bringing us updates today and on Friday, critical information that we need to do our work. As I was reflecting in the 10 or 15 minutes that I had to reflect on the magnitude of kind of this year's budget retreat, I really am struck by the number of major accomplishments and major undertakings that this county has been managing simultaneously. This year has seen some significant improvements in compensation for public safety and our staff in the Department of Social Services and animal control most recently. And those are adjustments that were right to do. but there are also adjustments we had to make to remain competitive in a regional labor market where people are free to drive 15, 20 miles down the road and take a different job with a different organization. If we want to keep good staff here in Granville County, we have to be prepared to pay for that. We've been bidding out landfill operations. We are in the process of revaluation of property values. We have been pinning down the details of our fire protection funding with our new fire protection district. We are in the process of developing our first ever 10-year capital improvement program. We have executed a changeover of our entire fleet management system this year. We have managed turnover in multiple key department head positions. And while one department, our economic development department, was completely empty, we managed to execute the sale of a quarter of the acres in our Triangle North Business Park, something that I think will help move this county forward. So all of those major things have been able to move forward, and in the background, the operations of 27 county departments have continued on. Want to appreciate all of the workers behind those 27 departments and all they do every day to keep the machinery of the county moving. So with that, I would like to welcome, we have some colleagues here from Davenport. These are our financial advisors, and they have been meeting with us regularly and helping us develop a draft 10-year capital improvement plan. Commissioners have heard from them multiple times and given feedback, and we'll continue to give feedback as we zero in on a final plan for developing the infrastructure that this county will need to accommodate a growing population, and a population that is changing shape too. We have an aging population in the county. We have a population that's growing more rapidly in the southern part of the county. And so we have to plan for that growth and figure out ways of accommodating that growth. And so there's Ted. Yep. Is there an assigned microphone for him to use? Okay, the podium is great. That's where you can go.
I have hard copies. Does anybody need a hard copy or like one?
If you will.
It's on the 14 pages. It's the full report in spring. He said he'd be speaking on the first 14 pages, which are in the book, and he's bringing his full report as a backup.
Are you moving the slides? Perfect. All right. Okay. Well, good afternoon. We appreciate the opportunity to be here. Again, I'm Ted Cole with Davenport. As Drew had said, we have been working with the county for a number of years in different capacities, mostly surrounding capital planning and debt issuance for projects. And over the last several months, we've been working closely with your staff to help develop and refine a multi-year capital plan. Everything we're presenting today is just for information. We're not looking for any action. I know you all have conversations ongoing amongst yourselves and with your senior county management, and we will be available as time goes forward to make updates and adjustments as you get further into your budget process. So what's on the screen and what was just handed out to you is exactly the same. I'm really going to go through about the first 10 pages. There are page numbers in the bottom right corner. So if we go to the next slide. In terms of bond ratings, the highest rating that any local government can achieve is a AAA rating. States, for that matter. You all have ratings from Moody's and Standard & Poor's of a AA2 and a AA. So you are 2 notches away from that highest rating that any local government can achieve. Those ratings are reviewed on a regular basis by the rating agencies. They are important, particularly when you're going to the debt markets to borrow money for a project. And I think part of what we're planning and discussing here today and moving forward I believe there is an opportunity to improve that rating, and nothing that we're discussing here today should preclude us from improving that rating. Not everything is in your control. I'll talk a little bit about that. Those last few steps are harder to get, but I do believe there's some upside to you all going forward to improve that bond rating. And essentially what that means is if you need to borrow money, you're able to do it at lower interest rates, and all things being equal, make it that much more affordable to do a project and fund a project. Within North Carolina, this bottom right corner, Moody's, one of the rating agencies, rates 14 different counties as AAA. You can see who those are. AA1, there's 10 counties. And then within your exact peer group, AA2, there's 21 counties across the state that are rated AA2. So this green box down here will give you an idea of the counties in North Carolina that are rated at the same level as you all are, or one notch and one notch above or below. So you're in very good company, if you will, and you'll see of the 100 counties, there's about 57 of them that are rated. Not everybody has a rating. So you're starting from a very good position as viewed by an outside entity that does nothing but rate local governments as a very highly rated community. And so how do they get to that conclusion? We'll cover it briefly on the next slide. And I'll start with just the Moody's on the upper left. They have a methodology that they go through. They look at a lot of different things. It's not all about debt. So the economy is worth 30% of your ratings. Things like your tax base, your wealth levels, the economic output of the county. And those are things that, again, represent 30% of the rating. But you all, as an elected body, really don't control those things year in and year out. They are longer-term initiatives to grow the tax base or increase jobs, increase economic output. So it's really a longer-term control. Another 30% of the rating is financial performance. So we're talking about how do you perform relative to your budget, your reserve levels, and there are things there that you do have greater control over in real time, certainly budget to budget. Institutional framework, that is just a function of being a North Carolina county, and you get a very good score for that because the rating agencies look at North Carolina as a good government state. But again, you don't control that 10% of the rating. That's a function of how North Carolina is set up for local governments. And then finally, the last 30% of the rating is what we call leverage. So that's actual debt, but then it's other things like pension obligations, post-employment benefits for your retirees, debt and debt-like items. Here you have control to some extent as you're making decisions in your budget. So when you look at this in the totality, you have some real control over about 60% of the rating. That is, decisions you make on a regular basis, and certainly budget to budget, will influence financial performance and leverage. The other 40% plus or minus is something that takes longer to control and manage. But you all have been doing that quite well as a county over the years, positioning yourselves for growth. S&P gets to about the same place. I don't want to belabor it, but there is a real methodology that they go through in looking at assigning a rating for a local government, and it entails a lot of different factors. All right, talk a little bit about financial performance. This is on page 4. We have audited financials, fiscal year 18 through 23. Thank you. The gold line are those general fund revenues, right? So that's money coming in on any given year. And then the bars are stacked. We're looking at your operating expenses in dark green, your debt service in light green, and then your capital outlay in blue. And you can see for all years except 2, revenues have outperformed these expenses. And only in 2019 and 2023 were expenses higher. That's because those were pretty significant years for capital. So you spent some one-time dollars for capital expenses those years, what we call pay-as-you-go, for whatever the projects might have been. And our observations, obviously, on the right is you perform very well financially. You have your revenues and your expenses are in structural balance over this period of time. You'll also see in that bottom chart that your reserves, your fund balance in the general fund, have grown year over year. Thank you. So just a quick look back. How have you been performing? Structural balance, revenues are growing at a commensurate level with expenses, and you have been growing your reserve levels as your budget's been growing. All right, page 5, and please, if there's a question on any of this, jump in, and I'm happy to explain something a little further. As it relates to fund balance, you all do have a policy. You have a target, sort of a minimum, I shouldn't say target, you have a minimum level of fund balance that you'd like to maintain. That's the red line, 30% of your budget in your unassigned fund balance. The unassigned fund balance is the component of your fund balance that you all have the most control over, with a target to be at 35%, a little bit higher. And you can see over these 6 years, you have been at or above the floor, and in the last couple of years, a little bit closer to the target, maybe dipped down a little bit. So as your budget has been growing, right, whatever is driving the growth within the county, your reserve levels have also been growing, and you've been able to maintain compliance with your policy. It's a very good policy level, and you've been in compliance, again, building that track record of financial performance. On a comparison basis, this is Granville County in gold, right? That's you're sitting basically a little above 30%, that gold bar. And you can see how you compare to other similarly rated counties nationally in the light green, and within North Carolina in the dark green. Essentially, your bar being further to the right means, you know, more dollars, a larger percent of your budget. You can see you're very much in line with similarly rated counties, whether it's within North Carolina or beyond. In fact, you're a little bit stronger than these AA1s and AA2 medians. But you can see within any one of these groups, you have a minimum and a maximum, right? You got somebody as low as 10%, somebody as high as 40%. Remember, that in and of itself isn't going to drive the rating. So you can have a highly rated community that might be a little bit weaker on fund balance, but that probably means they're stronger in other places, right? Remember that matrix that we had. But clearly, from the annual financial performance we looked at earlier, plus where your reserves have landed, you've managed that very well. You're starting from a very good position there as we start talking now about capital planning. Okay? So what we wanted to cover for you, for starters, is what debt do we have outstanding today, right? What debt have we issued and committed to over the years? And you can see graphically, your annual debt service goes all the way out to 2039. It's fixed rate. It will not change unless you change it. We know the payments every year by fiscal year. And the year that we're in, fiscal year 24, the payment is about $9 million. That's made up of lots of different loans that have been issued over the years. As time goes forward, these payments are stepping down, right? As debt is being paid off. And so one of the things that we're going to start talking about is, as you're getting into a discussion about capital needs over a 5 and 10 year period, what can we afford to do as a county? Not suggesting that one project is better than the other. We're not here to talk about specific project merits or priorities, but trying to help you understand on the front end, what is an amount that we could reasonably expect to be able to afford and maintain compliance with our policies and still maintain a strong debt profile. And essentially, it's this sort of this dotted line, right? So if you're currently paying $9 million a year, but in reality, your payments are stepping down, we've got all of this area in here that, in theory, you know, could be backfilled with additional debt service if you decide there are projects that you'd like to pursue. And you can kind of see that by the numbers, right? You're starting at a $9 million per year payment, and you can see in about 5 or 6 years, that's about cut in half, right, to about $4.7 million. So there is capacity and affordability moving forward based on the nice pay down that you're recognizing year over year in your existing debt. And that's a really strong place to be starting. It at least facilitates the conversation that you're having about capital. Again, it's not suggesting that you have to do something and that you must issue debt, but there is some real affordability built into your structure by virtue of those declining payments. All right? You do have debt policies. You have 3 of them. I won't get into all the math behind them unless there's a specific question, but across the top are your 3 debt policies. The far left one is a measure of how quickly you're paying your debt back. You want those green bars above the red line, and they are by a good measure. So you're in compliance there. You're paying your debt back quickly, which is what this policy is tied to. The middle one, lower is better. It's the amount of debt outstanding as a percent of your tax base. We want to be below the red line. Same over here, your annual payment as a percent of your budget. We want it to be below the red line. So you're in compliance with all 3 of those policies by a good measure, right? And so when we look at this in a vacuum, you could issue additional debt if you determine that you want to and that it makes sense. Not unlimited, but a certain amount, and still be in compliance with your own policies. So not only are your payments going down, which are freeing up dollars to allow you to entertain capital projects, but your policies are such that you have room within them to be having this conversation and considering additional capital funding for projects. Again, whether it's schools, it's counties, we're not just differentiating between any type of project. We're treating all of those as the same. You've got capacity and affordability for all of those, and you can see under each ratio the same comparison. You line up really well to your national and particularly your North Carolina peers when we look at those other AA rated counties. Okay? Go to the next slide. So in our early discussions here and working with staff, right? So think about this, everything we've talked about, existing debt, how you pay for it, your policies, your ratios, everything is set up very nicely and working well. What we're now listing here is essentially capital projects that might be considered by you all and future boards as you move forward year over year with your budget. These projects will get refined over time, inevitably, as conversations take place about cost estimates and updating cost estimates and prioritizations. But you can see just high level what the project list is, the estimated cost, in what fiscal year might that project occur, and how we might fund it, whether it's being funded from debt or perhaps cash, right? And you can see anywhere we use the term reserves, that means you're spending accumulated dollars. PAYGO is funding projects from current year revenues, from income from that year. So when you push it all together at the county level, these projects represent around $75 million. School projects, assuming there's some grant funding for Holly Middle School, could be about $28 million. So the universe of projects that we're dealing with here is a little over $100 million. Again, not looking for anybody to approve that list. That will be something that you all discuss as you move forward with your budget, taking into account feedback, I think, from this retreat. I know there's a couple of public hearings that are being discussed for the community to weigh in. All of those things will help inform what this capital project list looks like. And you can see across that $106 million, we've got about $73 million that might be debt funded, about $30 million that's cash funded from current year revenues, and using some reserves. And so where we land in terms of what additional impact might there be that we need to consider in future budgets will depend on how many projects, right, the cost of those projects, and the timing of those projects. And we've run some scenarios that looked at different levels of affordability, and I think that's just something that will evolve as we move forward. Again, the real driver to the affordability of this capital plan will be what projects are prioritized, and particularly in the early years, because when you look at the chart, you know, some of these are scheduled in for 2030, 2033, and beyond. So while you have good affordability and capacity, it doesn't happen all at once. It's got to be spread out over time to make it work within your current debt profile. So as a starting point, we had run these scenarios, and I think as time goes forward, Drew, as you all are digging into this more and you have the community feedback, this is likely to get evolved and reprioritized or maybe prioritized, and that will allow us the ability to go back and really measure the affordability and the impact of any one scenario versus another. Okay? The way we modeled it, this is what your new debt profile would look like if you did it exactly as this model assumes. You issued as needed year over year, about that $73 million of debt. And you can see, I don't know if you're going to zoom in on that one. Perfect, thank you. The dark green, remember that's your existing debt. You've already committed to that dark green, $9 million a year and stepping down. And what you see is we've started to layer in other debt issuances out in time that correspond to those projects. And part of what we've solved for here is we're trying not to go above your current year level for debt service, right? You're affording that $9.1 million a year in fiscal 24. And as this is stepping down and we're backfilling with other funding for projects, you'll see we don't get back up above that. And so that is just a graphic to help you understand how much you can actually afford as the old debt is tailing off. And it's about $73 million worth of projects within about a decade's time, give or take, maybe 8 years' time. We're assuming that the debt would be issued over 20 years at 5%. That would be consistent with what the local government commission in Raleigh would expect to see. They have to approve each piece of debt. So it's built around assumptions that are very functional and generally conservative in the underlying economics of the 5% rate. You'd be at 3.5% today. So we've been a little bit higher in our rate assumptions. Okay.
How does that, the tax rate, does that remain a steady tax rate? How do you account for that?
With the tax rate associated with this will depend on how many of these projects you want to endeavor to take on and how early you want to try to do it. There's a certain amount of these projects you can do without dedicating any additional revenue. So then we can measure beyond there what other projects could you do if you did dedicate additional funding sources.
If I could chime in too, Ted and Commissioner Williford, one thing that's true in the revale, right, is that each penny, right, is generating more revenue. And so what it takes on the county tax rate to generate that $9 million a year in debt service, for example, is a smaller and smaller kind of portion of the overall. Okay. I thought I had just turned it on. I'm sorry. Red is live on this one. So I hope you could hear what I was saying there. Yeah. So that modeling right there, just for the debt service alone, would not require tax rate increase, and presumably could be achieved with a smaller and smaller portion of the county's tax rate.
That's right. And, as this is really kind of the wrap-up slide. There's a couple of schedules behind this that sort of show you how all the numbers line up. But as Drew was saying, this is the debt issuance part of the CIP. Remember, there's about $30 million that would be cash funded, right, from current year revenues. And it's going to be that mix as you all evolve with prioritizing projects. How much of those projects could you fund with cash? To the extent that the cash is inadequate, then maybe you consider issuing debt to supplement the funding, and the timing of that debt will really be what we're analyzing to help you all understand, is it affordable with just the revenues we're dedicating today, or do we need to consider additional revenue commitments in the future? And this is really meant to kick that process off. I don't know if you want to go through those. I think that hopefully got to the essence, Drew, of what we wanted to cover.
Yeah, I think that's helpful, and again, commissioners have seen a couple of versions of this as we've gotten more developed, but I think that's a good spot. And I'll also say, for your benefit, but also for the audience's benefit, that commissioners have continued to give feedback of different sorts on these projects, which is helpful for us to prepare the capital improvement program that best meets your needs as the elected representatives of the county. And so that's an ongoing process. We are planning a number of public hearings on this so that the public will also have a chance to chime in on what's being proposed and what that would entail. So I think with that, Mr. Chair, we can see if there are questions or comments or other.
So I saw Commissioner May had a question, sorry to point. If you have time
County
for that.
Manager, where do we account for school funding? Should there be any in the CIP plan? Where is that account in the separate program in which we?
So one thing that actually has changed, right, since this slide deck was prepared is that we now know that the big state grant for a new Holly Middle School was not funded by the state. And so that doesn't actually, we had budgeted a 5% match that we might end up spending anyway as part of the capital improvement program, but we do know that that grant from the state was not received. The schools do not have any major construction projects planned aside from that one that they were hoping to get state funding for. I do think that it's fair to anticipate some smaller projects here and there. It could be that further consolidation concepts might require some adjustments to some of the facilities and so forth, but that's the kind of thing that leads us to, when we bring forward a final CIP, that's a good reason to leave a little bit of wiggle room in it, because we know that some smaller to medium-sized projects will come along and that we will have to find a way to accommodate, which could be by leaving space in the plan, but also a 10-year CIP is always a living document, right? The out-year projects can move around, they can get smaller or larger in scope, they can be pushed out a few years. So this is kind of a plan, but it's a flexible plan that we hope will be able to accommodate some needs that maybe we don't know exactly about today.
Yeah, and you will see on page 8, there's about 25 to 30 million in school capital running through this model. None of it debt funded. That was going to be paid for with cash resources. Now, we did have, as Drew said, we had the Holly in there. We were just showing the match. So if that doesn't occur, that expense isn't required, or that $2.5 million you could repurpose for some other reason. But there's a fairly significant funding year over year, in aggregate, almost $30 million that's built in here for school projects.
That's I think, as you know, the type 1, 2, and 3 capital. It's buses, it's capital maintenance, and what is shown in the detailed tables is significantly increased funding for that, for maintaining the buildings that we have more adequately than we have in the past, I think.
I was just going to wrap up on 14, and I know more or less kicking off the budget, and we've just talked about capital. There's a lot that you all have to discuss on the operating budget. I know there's a revow that's going on and all of the things that are required of that process, but from where we sit on the capital side, wanted to present this today to sort of truly kick it off and give you all a starting point for the capital planning, get whatever feedback is coming back as you all are thinking about this and maybe prioritizing projects. Community input, I think, is scheduled to occur at a couple different meetings in March. And then ultimately, as you move forward with your budget, the capital plan is likely to be included in its aggregate for approval, but you would typically only fund it 1 year at a time. And one of the first projects that's out there to be funded is the Northern Granville Senior Center. And that is a project that we are working with staff to get funding proposals in hand for that as the project is getting finalized from a cost perspective. We've had a preliminary conversation with the local government commission in Raleigh, and at some point we'll be back to you all to talk specifically about the senior center project and the debt that might be issued to fund it. But nothing on that this evening.
All right. Got us running a little bit ahead of schedule, which is outstanding. Any other questions from the commissioners?
I don't think most folks realize this is new. The county manager just kind of explained, this is new territory and way of planning that not been done before.
Sure. Although, as you could see from some of those earlier slides, we have issued debt in the past for school buildings, and we did issue debt for the law enforcement complex. We typically were not doing that. We weren't really issuing a lot of debt, and we also weren't kind of planning forward for multiple different capital facilities and trying to figure out when is the best time, what is the most needed, what needs to happen first. And so this 10-year capital improvement plan is an effort to be more planful about how this community pays for the infrastructure it needs, and also is an acknowledgement that the county does not carry enough cash reserves to just pay for multiple larger buildings out of the cash reserves, right? Our capital needs are outstripping our ability to just pull out our wallet and pay for a building. So, and these buildings, have a lifespan of many decades, right? So it makes sense to spread out the payments for those buildings over the lifespan of those buildings as well. Thank you, good question.
And I just want to reiterate for the umpteenth time as we go through this retreat, these are just for planning purposes. These are dates that are on these documents are not any kind of thing that's in stone. We're just putting them out there just so that we have a reference point. So. All right, we're ahead of it. Again, as I said, thank you. Appreciate you coming out tonight. Safe travels. I look back and see that we've got our next presenters and they're chomping at the bit to get up here. So let's go ahead while we're roll. And we'll bring up our folks from Granville Health System. And we're going to talk about the Granville Health System and EMS updates. We've got Adam McConnell, CEO, and Jonathan Purnell, our Emergency Medical Services Director, with us this evening. And we appreciate both of you being here tonight. Look forward to our conversation.
Yeah. We ready?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
No.
But now,
No,
is
no.
that better? Red, I'm not dead. I got it. All right. So I'll be. So I'm used to always having to drive my own PowerPoint. So this is fantastic. Give you the look. So just a little quick agenda. So Jonathan has the privilege of giving the main presentation today that I think most everybody's going to have a lot of questions about. But I'll give just a brief update on the hospital. Tell you just a little reminder about the services that we provide to the health system to the county, and then Jonathan will give us an update on the operations of the EMS. Also give you a quick update on a little bit about the performance of the health system. So up first, we'll talk a little bit about Granville Health System. Approximately 600 employees. We have a total of 240 medical staff at the health system. 83 of those are active, so 83 of those folks are coming in and out of the health system pretty much on a monthly basis. We have 10 primary care and specialty clinics. We are a 62-bed licensed hospital. We staff 42 of those beds in the hospital. So on any given day you come into the health system or sleeping overnight, we have about 42 of those beds ready to be used. We typically keep about 25 to 30 patients in the hospital overnight. We have 3 operating suites, 14 emergency beds, and we have an 80-bed skilled nursing facility on campus there on College Street. And then we operate EMS services for Granville County. Our mission at Granville Health System is to promote well-being, accelerate healing, and inspire hope. Just a quick recap of last year. So our fiscal year runs October through September. And so in our emergency room, we had just over 24,000 emergency visits last year. We saw over 4,500 visits to our operating room. We had about 4,500 visits in urology, orthopedics, ENT, gastroenterology, general surgery, ophthalmology, and a number of other specialties. In our imaging department, we had 36,000 imaging studies with MRI, CT, nuclear medicine, mammography, and radiology. I would be remiss if I did not show this wonderful picture of our 650 employees. We have a little over 30 or so here, pictured here with our 4-star rating we received from CMS this past year. Also wanted to make note of our 2023 Spotlight Winner of the Year. This is Thomas from our radiology department. If you ever come to the hospital, you will see Thomas. He is our Employee of the Year. Thomas was recognized for providing excellent care to our patients and living and breathing the mission of Granville Health System. So thank you to Thomas if you see him. Next, just wanted to highlight some of the facilities we have on campus. The majority of these are here in Oxford, and we do have other spaces as well, which we'll have noted. This is Brentwood. It's on campus at Granville Health System at 1010 College Street. If you flip to the next slide, you'll see the facility is open 365 days a year to patients, but we do take visitors Monday through Sunday, 7 days a week from 8 to 9 p.m. We offer skilled nursing, short-term and long-term skilled nursing care on campus there. Next is Granville Primary Care and OBGYN. That is on campus as well on Professional Park Drive. You can see the services we offer there, primary care and OBGYN services. Next slide, Granville Surgical Associates. We've just relocated this practice. They used to share practice with urology and ENT. They have moved into a new space. It's on the first floor on Professional Park Drive. And you can see there the services they offer as well. They're open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and 8 to 12 on Friday. Behavioral Health Services, Granville ENT and Granville Urology Associates in Building 102 on Professional Park Drive. And I just have these for you, so you have them with the services they offer as well. We'll move on down to Granville Gastroenterology Associates at 103B Professional Park Drive. And then Granville Heart and Vascular, 103C, here on campus as well. In Butner Creedmoor, we have Granville Primary Care Butner Creedmoor, which offers primary care, and then they have express care as well, Monday through Saturday. On campus at the hospital on College Street, we have Harold Sherman Adult Daycare, which is Monday through Friday. They offer programs to meet the needs of adults with disability and to meet the needs of their caregivers as well. This is a great program, and we have availability for additional patients there right now if you know anyone in need. Jonathan's going to...
Can you handle there?
So typically on a daily basis, we can handle up to 26. I think right now our census is 19. Jonathan's going to talk to you in a second about EMS. We'll skip over to some annual numbers. You can see our ER visits have begun to stabilize. We saw a significant dip there in COVID as we've gone into this year. We are starting to see stabilization. We're 2% behind last year on our ER volumes. We saw a significant increase here during the fall season and winter. Our average daily census, average daily visits in the ER have been fairly consistent. Year over year, we did see a fairly flat ER volumes. We saw about a 1% increase year over year. Average daily census in the hospital, we're averaging between 25 and 30. As you can see, we had significant spikes associated with COVID. Those big spikes are the mountains of COVID, RSV, and flu. And so you can see we expected another one to happen here at the end of the year as well, and we did see that. Volumes for the hospital and inpatient have decreased year over year as we've come down from the COVID volumes. Surgical cases have seen significant increases year over year, big financial drivers for the health system. We continue to see those surgical volumes increasing. Our practice encounters have seen significant increases as well. And we imagine that will continue to happen. We see more and more services moving to outpatient out of the hospital. When we look at the history of inpatient revenues and inpatient volumes moving to outpatient, it continues to happen year over year. We continue to meet the needs of patient in the outpatient setting. Some fiscal results for you. This is our last fiscal year. These are unaudited. Our fiscal year audit will happen hopefully in the next 60 days. We had revenues of just short of $90 million, total expenses 88.5, the operating margin of 1.57% or $1.4 million. Capital expenditures for the hospital, for the entire health system, $2.4 million in prior year. I have a listing there for you of all the different types of purchases that were made. Listing of upcoming and ongoing projects of the health system, increasing access to care. We're working to open an ambulatory surgery facility here in Oxford for gastroenterology cases, where you can have your colonoscopies completed in an outpatient setting. Improving access to care with additional providers, occupational medicine at our primary care in Oxford. We've purchased some medical space here in Oxford for increasing volumes of patients. We're working to install new CT, MR, nuke med, X-ray, fluoroscopy equipment in the hospital, and also some paving parking lot renovations in our imaging department this coming year. And as always, engaging with our community as we have in the last 12 months, continue to do so this coming year. Make sure we meet the needs and expectations of our patients as they change and evolve. Always like to mention our foundation, Granville Health System Foundation's focus is to facilitate and bolster Granville Health System's dedication to delivering highest quality of health care to all of our community members. And we have a fundraiser coming up. We have the 10th annual ambulance chase, which we have not had in a couple of years due to the pandemic. And so would encourage everyone to participate or just come out. You don't have to run or walk. You can come out for a great day in downtown Oxford. I can just watch you. You can watch me watch you. And thank you for voting. We have a few of our winners here. We had a best doctor, which was fantastic to see. We tied for first place. I'm not sure who else we tied with. If you know, I'd like to speak with them and see if we can break this tie up next year for the best place to work. Brentwood was voted the best assisted living facility. We had the best physical therapist as well, our best nurse, Jennifer Harris, and we had a second best nurse in Ashley Curran. Be happy to answer any questions. And we'll bring Jonathan up as well.
Okay, no questions from the board? And some of you may not have experienced a presentation by our CEO before, but he really hits the ground running hard, and it's fast. You got to keep up. It's barely enough time to turn pages. But that's a lot. Our hospital, Granville Health System, does a lot. So, EMS. Great. Jonathan, you're up next.
Yep. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Adam was kind enough to hit the ground running fast to afford me a few extra minutes of your time this afternoon. So we'll dive right into it. So the next slide just gives an overall snapshot of our EMS operations. We're budgeted for 44 full-time FTEs. We have about 10 PRN or part-time staff we utilize for vacation, sickness, FMLA leave. In our staffing profile, we have an EMS director, EMS logistics officer who handles our fleet maintenance program for us, and then the hierarchy of shift captains, and the rest of the number is made up with paramedics or EMT level providers. Our scheduling type, which still remains very advantageous for us, we run a 24/72 schedule. A lot of our competing rural EMS agencies that either touch our county or would be close enough to have workforce try to work there, they've recently, a lot of them have switched over to a 24/72 schedule from a different type of schedule, just to remain a little bit more viable to recruit and retain talent. So on our next slide is just a quick overview of where our resources are located. We've got 5 EMS bases spread strategically throughout the county, and then a mixed cache of resources from ambulances to quick response QRVs that we run in our EMS system. The next slide just gives a better overview of where our bases are located on the map. As you know, if you've tried to drive through Granville County, it's a very large county, a lot of road miles out there. What's interesting, you'll hear Granville EMS uses a blended approach of deployment for our ambulance and our EMS resources. So we have static, which means we have set base locations, and then we also offer dynamic deployment of ambulances as part of an overall system management plan that we execute. So as calls for service are dumping out of historically high density call area volumes, resources from the outlying area in Granville County start pooling and heading towards areas that we know are going to generate high density call patterns. So we have 4 ambulances that we run on a 24-hour a day 365-day basis. Then we have a peak time truck. That's something a lot of EMS systems utilize. You have certain periods that you can chart and look at in your call volume. You start noticing spikes of that call volume. You start trying to align resources where the call volume is to kind of get a even response time out. And we also run 2 quick response vehicles in our system. Frontline fleet is illustrated here. Notice a significant change over the last year. The ambulance fleet miles have gone down quite a bit overall. In our capital year replacement, we've got another slide coming up about that, but for this year we have an ambulance being replaced as part of our capital improvement plan and one of our QRVs. If you'll notice the green highlighted vehicles on your left-hand column, those were the vehicles that were purchased as part of the ARPA funds grant. And we'll go to our next slide. And this just gives a quick snapshot of year-over-year comparison of how our fleet looks from a mileage standpoint. Mileage is important for EMS vehicles because it helps ensure reliability of your fleet. The lower the miles, typically, the more reliable your fleet is. So if you'll notice, we've significantly reduced our frontline ambulance mileages and our QRV. And on the next slide is a picture of the 3 trucks that were purchased from the ARPA funds, and then with the purchase in addition of adding these vehicles into our fleet and replacing some of our outdated fleet, we saw over a 57% reduction in fleet mileage. So that was a really great project. What is our capital, as we were talking earlier as a group, what plans are needed for the future? This is a snapshot of our capital improvement projects that were approved and pending for this fiscal year. So the health system investing just over $500,000 in capital improvement projects. And right hand just kind of showed where those projects were and what it entails. So now we'll jump into our budgets and stats comparison a little bit. How does Granville EMS stack up compared to surrounding rural counties or other counties in our service area? So we have right at about a little over $6 million budget, and you can review throughout the other graphs how that aligns with some of the other counties that touch Granville County. The next slide just takes a different look at it. It's how do we compare overall with our EMS budget as a square mileage comparison. Again, Granville County has a lot of surface area, 531 square miles, and how do we stack up against other counties? Drilling down a little bit more, how does that budget fall out as a budget per capita? What are we spending per resident for the EMS service? Getting into the details a little bit more, our calls and trends. Up until this last calendar year, we saw a pretty substantial increase in call volume throughout the system. As Adam had showed on the hospital, we did notice some reduction in ER visits and hospitalizations during COVID. EMS was the opposite. We saw an increased call volume during the COVID years, and it kind of leveled off last year, coming in pretty flat as a year-over-year comparison for 22 to 23. Next slide just gives a little drill down of where those calls are located, and these are just categorized by base areas and what area that primary truck services. And that'll just give a snapshot for the last 3 calendar years. And for a breakdown of our 2023 call category outcomes, we saw just over 6,000, the highlighted number, over 6,000 system transports. System transports are important for EMS system because that is where your billing is generated from for transports. The other ones, really, the handful might get a service charge, but the main majority of your billable trips is in that 6,109 number. So we wanted to look at and see, historically, looking back in the last 365 days from the time this presentation was put together, where are our calls occurring at? So the blue dots you'll see on your screen represent our 5 EMS bases, and on the heat map, the gradient, the higher the gradient color, the more dense of call volume occurs in those areas. So nothing too surprising, but we all kind of know when you have, we're a rural county, but then when you start having your urbanized population areas, as we do in municipalities, you have a lot more calls for service in those areas than you do in some of the outlying and remote areas of the county. The next slide takes it and looks at it a different way. That is just call over call. You'll start noticing call stacking, again, in those call density areas in your municipalities and your urban population centers. Blue shading just represents an 8-mile radius around each EMS base. So 8 miles, when you start to factor in road conditions, speed limits, it gives you an idea of how long it takes EMS from the time the phone rings at 911 until ambulance arrives. Next graph kind of breaks that down, is what is the system's performance when it comes to response metrics. A lot of public comment from time to time is centered around, well, how long did it take EMS to arrive to my emergency? This graph takes all that into effect. You'll notice the blue shading represents call volume, and one of your axes on your right-hand side of the screen is overall call volume. Your left-hand side axis represents your, the time the phone rings at 911 until you start seeing your EMS unit arrive. The important thing we like to notice is that our call time, even during peak time where the blue shading comes up and peaks, it still remains pretty consistent. So that shows a good way for us to know, are we doing the right things in our EMS system when it comes to our resources, i.e. the peak time ambulance that we already have in play, that's being effective at mitigating response times. So one of the things that a good measure of how effective are you in the performance of your EMS system, what is a tangible data element that you can use to compare and look at it? So we arrived at using unit hour utilization, UHU for short, is basically a measurement of ambulance capacity. It combines your response volume with the total amount of ambulance coverage hours. So in a mostly rural system, which Grambling County still is, we're primarily rural, even though we have a couple of municipalities with some urbanized population area. 0.01 to 0.02 is a desirable metric to have, and that was highlighted by the Center for Public Safety Management Company, world-renowned company that does a lot of EMS system analyzation. So our UHU, when you start looking at our model, we have 4.5 EMS ambulance resources, and it comes back to, if you go back to the previous slide, please. Comes back to 2.45, so it puts us above the recommended desirable threshold of 1 to 2, and that's based off of last call year, calendar year's call volume. All right, next slide.
Based off municipality modeling, or just when that the standard is it? What is based off? Does it involve measuring large square miles, such as Grambling County? Rural versus, or is it, how is it, what standard is it using?
Rural.
Rural, okay.
Rural. Yes, sir.
I've got a question, I didn't know if you wanted to wait till the end, but when do you need, okay, so going back to the, you have the 8-mile shading, okay? And it looks like you've got a fair amount of blue dots west of the Oxford area.
Yes, sir.
At what point do you need another station? When is that determined, or what determines that?
I think, so, great question. It's a lot of different ways to look at that.
Karen, can you back that up? A few slides, there you go, right there.
So in this slide, one of the things that a lot of EMS systems have started doing more so, and it gets back into that dynamic deployment, is necessarily when you start really isolating and pinpointing when that call volume is occurring, hour a day, and then you tailor make your system approach. So it would be more than likely if building an EMS base, that's one thing we know is the others are going to present later this evening from municipality updates and the planning department and zoning. What's the future growth? Where's the growth coming at? But what we can do in place of that in the meantime is shift and alternate peak time trucks. Add additional peak time trucks that float to these areas that we don't have a established EMS base to mitigate the risk of having increased response times.
Is the 8 mile something that the state mandates, or is that something the local, y'all just use that 8 mile?
Just- It is no mandate on that, and that's one of the challenging things with EMS. There's no real state-defined element when it comes to your response time. That's managed, every system takes it in a uses different approaches and mitigates the risk in different ways. A lot of people just overall look at response time as a metric for just pure system performance. I think that has a lot of variables in it, so we don't really just base it solely on response time. UHU, the unit hour utilization, that just gives a better, it doesn't really necessarily mean just response time, but UHU kind of breaks into when you do have an emergency, what is the percent of availability that you're gonna have an ambulance available to come to your emergency?
The southern end is at Butler, Creedmoor, and down toward the corner to Wake County, right?
Yes, sir.
Piggyback piggyback on what he said about the 8 mile radius. Okay, that 8 miles of radius, if you saying it's 8 miles from the station?
Yes, sir. 8 miles from, buried in all the green dots of EMS calls, inside the dot is a blue little dot, and that, the blue shading is an 8 mile radius of, off of what EMS base we currently have in operation.
That's a station in there, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If that station up there got a QRB in it, and you see the tip end that corner up there, I think it's on the line up there, and he's gonna run from that station to the tip end that corner there, that's it's 8 miles.
8 miles circumference
It's
around
8
each
miles.
base.
Then if he got a he run on a QRB, and they got to call when he get there, he got to call an ambulance, and the ambulance in Oxford, you talking about another 20 miles to him to get there, and then turn around and get back to the hospital. That person almost gonna be dead.
Yeah, good. I mean, it depends on what the emergency is, but yes, sir. A QRV base does have a QRV. It has the same ALS equipment that ambulance has, but it ensures a quicker response than just the EMS resource coming from one of the other bases up.
Advanced life support, so it's equipped with advanced life support, and placed in the rotation so that it can reach those points as quickly as possible when you do not have a wagon available, correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
My thing is, there's a lot of elder folks up in that area point up in Oak Hill. And you got a QRB. I don't know when it's gonna be rambling, but we don't have an ambulance up there. I don't know when do y'all have an ambulance in the station?
We have a stock truck that is housed there, but the QRV is the main resource that is assigned to that base.
You have an ambulance there,
Yes, sir.
but you're using the QRB.
Yes, sir.
So what we can do to make that ambulance work? Cause when I get a call, I'm looking for an ambulance. Cause I call for it, when I call to get that.
So are all the mega dots. Where we have to make a decision and have to talk about, every life is important, and we're providing services the best we can to as many people we can. The question is, how you make it run boils down to one answer: how much are we willing to fund them? That's the answer.
Yeah.
That's the answer.
I'm saying, because when we first started, put an ambulance, put an EMS station there, it was an ambulance and everything in every station.
But what they're doing
But
now.
they turned around and took the ambulance out and put a QRB in there. And like, those people's up there, like you saying, those, y'all, to me, it was a slap in my face. And to me, it's like saying that, I don't care, all I want is your money to pay the taxes and keep things going. That's the feeling I get, and that's the feeling that people up in that community
I'm
get.
sure this is the same feeling people get that live down in Wilton when they had 1,066 calls and Oak Hill had 131. I'm sure it's the same feeling. And it's our responsibility to decide where we're gonna put the funding and decide on that funding. But you gotta, right now what they're set with is, their issue is they're identifying for us where these holes are. The question is, are we gonna fund the building of new stations? Are we gonna fund additional, units, that they need? That's, it's good that the public sees that you see a population center in Oxford, Butner, and Creedmoor, and when those ambulances are out, that means they're shifting ambulance north, and then they're shifting a QRV Centrix to cover what they can. On top of that, the other issue that's compounded with that is, and it's universal, it's just not Granville County. Systemically, across the state, EMS personnel are hard to hire, are hard to get. Could you tell them how many times on average, or just general comment, how often we're helping in mutual aid in other counties?
Quite often. I mean, other counties, I would say probably about 70 to 80 times annually. And that's probably a conservative.
Right, and then also you have the Federal Correctional Institution that you're dealing with as well.
So what are you saying? You leave the pod off up in North.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying,
Leave
that's not what I
Leave
said.
the pod in North Haven County, don't worry about them, but remember the rest of them.
You're not listening.
No, I'm saying this.
What
we
I'm
need to
saying-
worry
what
about
I'm-
everybody.
That's what
What I'm telling you is, it's a funding issue. That's what I said.
So I'm gonna get us back on track. We had great dialogue. So we've got 4 identified holes in our map. But the Virginia line, the 158 western section, and then that big giant thing, so many dots you can't even make it out. It looks like it's just a green square triangle down there. So you started off with the UHU comparison, and you were about to talk about a proposed service expansion.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
It's good. Thank you.
So, yeah, so puts us, in our current system model, it has an above a desirable threshold of efficiency for that UHU model. It has us at 0.25. If we add an additional 24 hours of ambulance coverage to the system, brings up our ambulance unit productivity hours to a little bit over 48,000 based on historical call volume. That puts us at the top tier still of efficiency, but it puts us closer in line of having more resources in the system for emergencies by adding an additional 24 hours of EMS ambulance coverage. So our proposed service expansion would be to look at adding additional EMS ambulance resources into the EMS system. Now, further studies will dictate, based on call volumes, based on population center, based on a lot of different facts, how you use those resources to do it as efficiently and effective as you can. And then just a projection based off of taking our same UHU calculation, trying to stay at the top tier of efficiency on UHU at the high end yield. This just paints a picture if we continue to see the call growth volume based off of historical EMS volume without starting to add any new population centers or different ways to attack population to Granville County. This is just a projection to give an idea of what we would probably need for resources in the future as we start trying to future plan for EMS services. And then some of our future capital funding projects from the hospital side that we're already looking. And keep in mind, this is not part of our annual operating expense. This is on top of annual operating expense for the budget.
Can I, real quick, and I'll make it quick. Do you get, back earlier, we don't need to move the slide, with the capital improvement, do you get grants or grants available? Are you able to get grants for some of these?
Some grants, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Minimal or 10%, 20%, just
Minimal
Okay.
grants, yep. I think the biggest grant funding project was the ARPA funds
Yep.
of recent.
This year, we don't have any grants for
okay.
capital funding.
Okay.
Could I ask a quick question on that previous slide? So, nope, the next one. Your fiscal year and ours do not line up, right?
Correct.
So what we're looking at there under fiscal '25 is not an ask for our upcoming fiscal year?
That's right. That's for our budget starting in October of this
Okay.
year.
I just wanted to make sure that was clear. There is an ask
Yes.
for next year, but that's not part of it.
No, sir.
Yeah, our request for next year is 300. I think for capital is a little over 380. That's just for an ambulance to staff an additional ambulance.
Yeah.
And then an operating cost to staff 24 hours. Yeah.
So
Yep, so this one's important. So one of the things we've talked about with the county manager is a future plan. So, we do this request on an annual basis. But one of the needs that we have is a 5 to 10 year plan for not just the operational needs, but the capital needs, so that we can better plan for these large financial expenses. And so taking into account the population growths in different areas of the county, and those needs, and taking into account the call response times that we want and that we need to agree on, we've engaged a consulting firm. We've talked to, I think, 3 different firms. We've landed on one firm that we'd like to work with at the health system to help us do a 13-week analysis to bring out a plan for what we think it's going to cost to build bases and to generate the response times that we want, and we can bring that back for future years. We just weren't able to have it available to us for this year's budget request.
Mr. Vice Chair.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
As far as,
Oh, sorry.
you kind of touched on mutual aid. How many calls a year, do you have the numbers on how many calls a year do we make outside the county for mutual aid, and how many calls per year do other counties make into our county for mutual aid? Do you have those numbers available?
EMS actually does not track that data. That data is tracked and kept at the 911 dispatch center. So
Okay.
they're the ones that hold that data.
Okay,
Yes, sir. I will say that working with the 911 data, or the 911 coordinator manager, it's a manual process, so,
okay, thank you.
yes, sir.
Tony's got one. Commissioner Kozar.
Yes, I think you mentioned this, Mr. Brunel. The equipment that's on the QRV versus on the ambulance and the capabilities of a QRV, can you just briefly review that for me?
Yeah, so the QRV runs the same type of state-regulated equipment that the ambulance has. It carries the same type of drugs that the ambulance has. It's just operated by a singular provider. And in our system, that singular provider is what we call a senior paramedic, or other places will call them a paramedic level 2. Is one of our higher tenured staff members that has had demonstrated competencies to be able to act independently, to not have to have another partner to bounce an idea or a thought off of. So we're putting our highest trained staff that we have in our organization on our QRVs.
All right. Thank you, sir.
So you're basically saying a QRV will not hold the client if they have to take them to the hospital, but they can work on them and do just about anything that the ambulance could do at the site.
That is correct. The only difference, the QRV cannot physically transport somebody, but they have the same equipment.
Go ahead, you had.
Yes, thank you. I got 2 questions. The FCI Butner and the drag on our system, are we working at all with them to see, have we reached out at all with maybe congressional, and to see how we can, it's become a burden for Granville County. And it's really easy if you have a medical center out there, and every time you need an ambulance, you can take an ambulance away from Granville County. And of course, I know it's some benefit to the hospital as well, because it's some revenue, but at the same time, it just, in my view, it seems to disrupt our system. So is there any talk maybe with congressional affairs or anyone with FCI Butner to be able to say, hey, time out. This is the rate we want you to pay. And because it is a substantial drag on our system, is there any talk about how we can make that better?
I have a meeting with them next month to talk about this.
Okay, good. Because I think, I'm confident that they understand that they're a lead weight, and that we have citizens that are paying taxes, they're not getting that benefit. Also, get calls from citizens talk about the insurance provider. Adam, we had this conversation.
Yep.
Can you kind of talk about that really quick so people understand? Someone has Medicare, Medicaid, Medicare, and their private insurance carrier, but yet when they come to the ambulance, they're still owed money, and the provider won't pay for it. And I'm just wondering if you can touch on.
Yep. So different counties have handled it differently. Historically, in Granville County, we've handled it the same way that we've always handled it. In Granville County, for EMS claims, we are out of network with commercial payers. And the reason is the commercial payer pays us more to remain out of network. And what that does is puts a financial responsibility back onto the claimant or the patient. And so we try to renegotiate our contract with all the commercial payers, and they return to us with a lower payment if we negotiate in-network claims with them. Now, if we do sign an in-network contract with the payers, it would reduce our payments back to the system significantly, which would then we'd have to find another way to fund EMS. And the reasons for them doing that, they have their own reasons for why they would want their customers to pay in higher dollars for their own care. But for us, it ends up requiring us to ask patients to pay for their own care.
There's a bigger draw on your ability to cover cost, and the insurance company shifting it to you because they prefer to make more money.
That appears to be the case.
Okay.
No, we did this evaluation 3 years ago, and then we're doing it again right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for doing that too, by the way. Thank you for meeting with Butner. I appreciate that.
Yep.
We're going to circle back to our manager right quick, and then Commissioner Commissioner Jay.
Adam, I had a follow-up question about FCI Butner. I was down there for a kind of a community relations meeting and met the warden a couple weeks ago. And I think that people in the community may or may not know, but it's really one of the larger federal prison complexes in the whole United States, and also has one of the largest medical complexes of any federal prison in the United States. So they're importing people who have a lot of medical needs, and that may hit the hospital and the EMS system a little differently, right? So in terms of where the costs and benefits fall, but I'm glad that you're meeting with them and talking through that, and I'd be interested to hear how that goes. I think it is, it's kind of a complicated presence in the county with respect to the EMS system. You're right to ask about that, and it's important to probe a little bit.
Okay, Commissioner Jay.
Okay, you was talking about the QRB can't transport anyone. Well, I was at one of my neighbor's house. This elderly lady, she failed, and the QRB came up, and the only thing he could do was do paperwork with her, and he couldn't do anything else for her because she needed transfer for that. So we had to wait for an ambulance to come on the other side of Oxford to come up there and get that lady. Well, we have an ambulance was in 2 minutes or 3 minutes from the house. So if we got an ambulance up in the area and the station and everything, we need to figure out a way how to get it funded instead of running that QRB, let the QRB run somewhere else around in the county.
Okay, Commissioner Kozar.
I guess this is really a logistical question in reference to the situation where a call is made for a QRV. Is a simultaneous call made for an ambulance to go up so that the time lapse is shortened?
Yes, sir, you're exactly correct in that. So it's simulcast dispatch at the 911 center. So when you're on the phone, that QRV is being dispatched. Also, a transport truck an ambulance is being dispatched at the same time. This concept of operations is not something just unique to Granville County. A lot of systems, larger systems, are starting to do it. They're having different deployment models. I'll use Wake County, for example. They've started adding BOS trucks, lower level than paramedics, into their system. So if you met a lower acuity for a call, you might have a truck coming from the Wake Forest base to the other side of Wake County to save that truck, that higher level of care for a different type of emergency. So this is, I don't envy your decisions and what you have to do with funding, but know that you're definitely not alone in it. Every EMS system, probably nationwide, is being challenged with some of the similar thoughts and conversations that are occurring in this room today. How to take and balance EMS resource, public need, and do it in a very efficient way.
And just to piggyback on that, that's a good question, and I appreciate your response to that. one thing that I learned in some of these conversations is that currently our 911 dispatch and the protocols that they have from the county medical director don't distinguish between, or in terms of what gets dispatched,
Correct.
don't distinguish between a very low acuity call and a very high acuity call, which means that somebody might have stubbed their toe or even be, who knows why they're calling, right? And off an ambulance goes. And so I think part of my goal in conversations with the hospital and the EMS system is also to make sure that we're doing what we can and working with the medical director and so forth to make sure that we're optimizing the resources that we do have as much as possible, right? Because really what you want to do, those ambulances, advanced life support ambulances with multiple staff and the ability to transport, you do want to save those for your most acute calls. And if there's a way to kind of dispatch appropriate level of medical care to a lower acuity call, you would want to do that, right? That saves resources.
Just a quick ballpark from our folks, if you would, approximately, about what do we spend on EMS a year?
2.9.
2.9, and we're spending out at over 6 million on EMS. I think it's a bargain. I think that we're definitely, I'm thankful for our health system, and I say that every time with our health system. You guys do amazing things for our community, so we appreciate you, and appreciate the UHU
Yes, sir.
UHU comparison data. It's always nice to have a metric behind something, so when you say, when do you look into the crystal ball and say, okay, it's time for another ambulance, because you have these standards to look back at, and appreciate that. Look forward to that coming
Thank you for the ability
forward
to present to you all today.
as we do our planning. So, see Ms. Amber here. So if we want to continue to roll on, thank you so much. We're ahead of schedule, if that's okay by you. Ms. Amber?
As Amber is coming up, she's a known quantity for quite a few people here, but maybe not a known quantity for some other folks. And I want to appreciate the NCACC sending one of their crack team members up here to present at our retreat. And for those in the audience, the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, I was thinking about this today, is kind of, in many respects, the eyes and ears and mouth of the county. Eyes and ears in the sense that during legislative sessions, for example, there is a lot going on in Raleigh that Granville County doesn't have the ability to fully track. And they have staff in the Capitol talking to legislators, going to committee meetings and so forth, and then having weekly calls with county managers and assistant county managers and staff all around the state every week, keeping them up to speed. And they're also our mouthpiece, or can be. I think that Amber will touch on this, but counties, and then, sometimes the groups of counties or all 100 counties have important legislative goals that they want to see pursued in Raleigh with the state government. And sometimes counties will have individual goals that they want to pursue as well. And it's often helpful, I've found, we have an idea about a piece of legislation. We might not actually know whether it is very Granville County specific or if it happens to be something that might be a shared interest of many other counties. And so that's when we get in touch with Amber and with Kevin and all the other folks there and poke around. And sometimes we find that we have good company, right? And this becomes something that we might run up the flagpole as a possible statewide NCACC legislative priority. Or it might become clear that this is something that we need to pursue as a piece of special legislation, local legislation. Or it might be something that we hear pretty clearly back on. That idea does not have a snowball's chance in HE double hockey sticks. And so give it up, right? And go work on a different project. And so I really appreciate the expertise and the acumen that Amber and her colleagues bring to this. And I'm looking forward to her presentation. So thank you for being here.
What a flattering introduction, Drew. He stole a little bit of my thunder, but that's okay. My name is Amber Harris, and I am Director of Government Relations for the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. I've been at NCACC for coming up on 9 years now, which is kind of crazy. And my whole career has been in state government. It's all I've ever done professionally, and I really, really love it. And it's a pleasure to work with such wonderful leaders like the ones y'all have in Granville County. And I mean that sincerely. So what I'm gonna do is start with sort of a legislative update, maybe some old news that you've all heard. I'm gonna talk a little bit about the state budget. And then I'm gonna talk about what we're working on at NCACC and what we call the interim, the time when legislators are not in session. There's other things for us to do. So I'll talk about that. And then I'll talk about what Drew talked about, which is our legislative goals process. This is a process that NCAC uses to set our legislative agenda. But before I did all that, I wanted to, one, point out some handouts that you have. There's one, Commissioner Cozart, will you hold that up for me? So that is our legislative report. We produce a really comprehensive report on all the goings-on of the legislative session every year. Legislative sessions are getting longer and longer, so our reports are getting longer and longer. So there's that. Additionally, I included a spreadsheet that has a list of all the directed grants that counties got in last year's state budget. It's a lot of money. So you can search for Granville County in there, and additionally, you can kind of see what neighboring counties may have received. And then finally, there's like a roadmap of our legislative goals process, and I'll have a slide up there that talks about that. So that's one thing I wanted to get out of the way. The other thing I wanted to get out of the way was, are there any questions that y'all have? Any particular things you wanted me to talk about, focus on, cover, not talk about? No, you're very transparent. You have the public here, and I'm living for it. So, okay, I'll get started. So I got the first slide, yeah. So this is just an overview of the legislative session. We keep talking about legislative sessions getting longer and longer, and I mentioned that the only thing I've ever done professionally is state government. There was a time when a legislative long session, this is the session that begins in odd numbered years. A legislative long session started in January and it ended in July, and we went home on the 4th of July. We had a summer, it was amazing. That is no longer the case. Legislative sessions are stretching out longer and longer, well into the fall, sometimes into Thanksgiving, sometimes even into Christmas. And so what that really means is legislators are spending a lot of time talking about the stuff that they're doing. We can, depending on who's in the room, you might have some debate about why those sessions are taking so long, but that's the case. 130 days in session. That was me at the beginning of session. I have Benjamin Button disease. So there's 140 session laws, which is also, compared to the number of legislative days, pretty low. The number of bills that are becoming laws is getting smaller and smaller, which is something to think about when, I just said, folks are in session for a long time, but they're passing fewer bills. So what's that mean? It means that consensus is becoming increasingly hard to get to. Issues are more controversial. I think those are 2 points to make. And then the other thing I wanted to point out, and then is the 19 gubernatorial vetoes this session. North Carolina has one of the weakest governors in the nation, and I don't say that as a dig toward our governor, more that it's the position holds a lot less power than it does in some states. North Carolina was one of the last states to actually give the governor gubernatorial vetoes, and he has been using them this session, or he's been using them and used them more than he ever has this last legislative session. And what you can see here, what I've laid out there, is sort of the breakdown of Republicans and Democrats in either chamber. And so what that means, the veto-proof majority, that means that if the legislature passes a bill, it goes to the governor for his signature. He can refuse to sign it for any number of reasons. It may not, largely because it doesn't align with his political agenda. But despite that veto in both chambers in the North Carolina General Assembly, the chambers can override those vetoes. So that means that bill can become law, notwithstanding the governor's veto. And I tell you that to say it really sets up an interesting dynamic between the executive branch and the legislative branch. Y'all know all this. Next slide. So I'm not gonna spend a lot of time here because it's drama, but these are like high visibility legislation. These are big things that the General Assembly spent a lot of time talking about. And for me, I am really committed to county government. It's what I do when I go into the building. It's what's on my mind. And so I find it very frustrating when legislators don't have time or don't want to listen. But the truth is, they're doing all of this. These very controversial things, these things that you see on the news, that takes up a lot of time, a lot of energy. And sometimes folks, when these bills have been passed, folk need to take a little break, go home, rest, realize why they're doing the job they're doing, and come back ready to get the consensus on some things. So, won't spend a lot of time there unless you want me to. Any questions? No. We can go to the next slide. So I'll talk a bit about the state budget, $30 billion. That's a big chunk of change. North Carolina is in really excellent fiscal shape. We have a $6 billion rainy day fund. That's billion with a B. And so what that means is that the comparison I always make is when you're broke, you know, you're at the end of the month, I got $20. So I got to get gas and I got to get something to eat for the next couple of days. You can prioritize very, very easily. When you have a lot of money, that prioritization becomes more difficult. And I think as North Carolina continues to be in great fiscal shape, people want to live here, people want to spend money here, people pay taxes here. As that happens, the General Assembly is really grappling with how do we prioritize all these funds. We also have a very conservative legislature who wants to make sure that we have a robust rainy day fund for any kind of emergencies that might befall the state. Big budget priorities, Medicaid expansion that went live 2 months ago. This was a top priority for the association. We've really been beating that drum for a few years, and know that it came with some challenges for counties, particularly in your DSS arenas. But overall, thought it was, our members came to the consensus. I'll talk about how they did that at the end of this presentation. Our members came to the consensus that 600,000 people with healthcare is a good thing for the state and a good thing for counties. Lots and lots and lots of infrastructure funds, reductions in individual income taxes, and raises for state employees and school personnel. These raises for state employees and school personnel were a big chunk of the budget. Also, these infrastructure funds, and a lot of those infrastructure funds came in the form of directed grants. So that means that the General Assembly said, or legislators at the General Assembly said, hey, my county needs XYZ for water, for a community college, for whatever, and those funds went to that local government, that county, that nonprofit, whatever. Next slide. So I talked about those special appropriations. I talked about the state having a lot of money. That number is increasing over the years. Amber Harris thinks, me personally, Amber Harris thinks that as a lot of the funding that came from the federal government with American Rescue Plan funds, as a lot of that money goes away, we're gonna start seeing those number of special appropriations go down. The state just isn't gonna have it. There's also a lot of investments in short and long-term investments in child welfare and behavioral health. We've talked a lot about, over the last few months, about the transition in our LME MCO structure and what that means really for the future of behavioral health in North Carolina. I don't know. I've been at this a long time. And I don't know what the future of behavioral health in North Carolina looks like, but I really want us all, county commissioners, to think about what we want in terms of the future of behavioral health, and also what the county role should be. Counties are continue to have to pay, and so what is our role? What is the county government's role in governance of behavioral health? The state also spent a lot of money on foster care. I'm not sure if this issue is particularly acute in Granville County, but this time of year, we go out and visit all of our not all of our member counties, my goodness, no. We try to visit as many member counties as we can, and everywhere we go, there's this issue of foster care in a few different ways. There's both just foster parents who were foster parents, stopped being foster parents during COVID, and it's very hard to get them back on the foster parent roles. Additionally, there are children who have really critical behavioral health needs. These are kids who act out in really sometimes troubling ways. And the services that are available to them need to be very specialized, very specific, very therapeutic. And there is a real dearth of those services. So what we're seeing is these children are now in the custody of a DSS, either in a hotel, in a DSS office, places that they shouldn't be. And so what the state did was make a pretty significant investment in the capacity to increase that capacity. It's very much a temporary fix. $5 million is not gonna do it. And as we talk about our goals, I would really urge us all to think about what sort of policy changes or administrative changes need to be made to rectify this issue. Funding is a big part of it. We just gotta be willing to put up the cash, frankly, but that isn't it. That can't be it. And so I really kind of look forward to working collaboratively with y'all to figure that out.
Amber, just for commissioners' benefit and for the audience, you're absolutely right that 5 million across the whole state with all of the difficult to house and treat youth is nothing. And we have been faced with, to get back to one of my early comments about how we pay and compensate employees in DSS, we had mid-level and even mid to upper level exempt, meaning salaried DSS staff who were being called in to work overnight weekend shifts for nothing. We, initially our policy said you can get some comp time, right? Think about what you're asking somebody to do. Here, sorry, I know you had your weekend planned, but sorry, you got to come into the DSS offices and sleep on a couch and watch a kid that we can't find a placement for. And here's some comp time that because we're so short-staffed, you might never be able to use. It's not an equation that really works at all for people. And so when they look at, for example, DSS agencies that have much more specialized staffing, they got a whole crew that is responsible for that, right? And if you have the equivalent position, exempt position in that agency, you don't ever get called in to work overtime like that. We have a hard time. We have to be creative and figure out how to compensate people fairly for that kind of work, because our piece of that 5 million is nothing. And so we have to kind of be ready to do that on our own as long as this problem continues.
Yeah, and I'll say, I was gonna get to this a little bit later, but I'll say NCACC has put together a working group of DSS directors, DSS attorneys, folks from the LME MCOs and from the Department of Health and Human Services to just suss this out. Like what fixes need to happen where. And it's been really illuminating for me because every person you talk to says that's the thing. Every person is like, oh, it's this, it's this, it's this, it's this. And so we really got to come to consensus on what the things are, because this is unacceptable. And shout out to DSS workers. Those people are angels. Yeah. So I'll pause for any questions. Next slide, please. So I want to talk a little bit about really quickly about some of the non-budgetary policy things that are in this budget. That were in this budget. In any given year, I'll pause and say, in any given year, the state budget is kind of the biggest piece of legislation that the General Assembly does. It really is a statement of priorities, but additionally, remember how I said session was getting longer and longer? So is the budget. And more policy is finding its way into the budget. Stuff that's not necessarily related to spending or appropriating things to agencies or local governments. So these are some of those policy things that when you're reading through the budget, you're like, oh my God, that has nothing to do with money. How did it get in there? Well, here we are. So bond transparency, some new disclosures required when issuing bond referenda. There's new authority for the Joint Legislative Committee on Governmental Operations to investigate state agencies as well as local governments, as well as contractors of local governments. And this is really thematic, I think, of the last few sessions. There's a lot of interest in government transparency, rightly so. Taxes are expensive. I want to know how they're being spent. But sometimes, are there legislators in the room? Sometimes it's a little tough to take these kind of increased visibility of local governments as it relates to transparency. So really thematic of the session. I think this provision surprised a lot of us, but when you go back, it's not really surprising. This is kind of something that's been circulating at the General Assembly for a while, this notion of transparency. And again, I talked about the restructuring of LME MCOs. This gives the reason we were able to have this restructuring is because there was some new authority granted to the DHHS secretary to decide what LME MCO structure should be, what counties should fall into what catchment areas, and what that governance should look like. It is a big deal. I think LME MCOs, the work that they do will continue to shift. I would not be surprised if this new number, we went from 10 to 4 in 10 years. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a bill angling towards like privatization of the behavioral health system in the next few years. But it's definitely something for us to keep our eyes on, and also to be really creative and imaginative and forceful with our members of the General Assembly as we talk about behavioral health, because it's expensive and it's not working. And I think let's not keep not having it work because we can't come up with a better idea. Does that make sense? And then also some changes in community college governance. Next slide. This is just more details about those things, but I'll keep rolling if that's okay. And the next one. Boom. Okay. So in the interim and short session, when legislators go out of town, that's what we do for like 2 weeks. We're looking around like, what are we supposed to do now that the General Assembly is not in session? And then we do this stuff. So the first thing that I want to talk about was the Foster Youth and Inappropriate Placements Working Group that we've put together at NCACC. It's a collection of about 15 folks. We've had 3 meetings, really including everybody from every piece of the system. I think a lot of reason that this issue sort of languishes and is unresolved is that folks talk about it, but not necessarily to each other altogether. And I think we've had some productive conversations in terms of even small things to fix, like the assessments that children with these behavioral health needs, they take a very, very long time. So we need to fix the assessment piece. Obviously, there's the funding piece, and then recruitment of foster parents. So many things that we can do to sort of mitigate this issue. Again, I talked about the future of behavioral health more broadly. Affordable housing is a thing that we find ourselves talking about very, very often. I'm not certain what the county role in providing affordable housing is, but I know that every county is struggling with it. The way that we've seen it kind of play out at the General Assembly is really broad, big bills that preempt local authority around zoning, around planning, et cetera, et cetera. And it matters to some counties more than others. As North Carolina, again, is expanding and growing, frankly, we're just running out of room. I live in Durham. Durham is full. Nobody else moved to Durham. We're full. But as our more suburban counties, the Johnstons, the Chathams, the Granvilles, as these counties grow, figuring out where these people who want to live here are going to live is becoming an increasingly big challenge. And for us at NCACC, preempting local authority is not it. It can't be the only solution to this problem. We gotta find a way to incentivize the industry. We gotta find a way to, I think we gotta find a way to incentivize the industry. I think that's actually probably the answer. But again, affordable housing, a big thing. We've also developed a working group around affordable housing with our partners at the League, with the home builders, and with the Apartments Association to just kind of throw spaghetti at the wall and see if we can come up with a solution that we bring to the General Assembly as a way to address the issue of affordable housing without totally preempting local government's authority. We're also talking about support in filling vacancies at the county level. I heard my friends from the hospital system talk about the difficulty in attracting folks in EMS. We talked about the struggles that we're having in DSS. There is not a county department that isn't struggling to hire people. And so we really gotta figure out, I keep saying I don't have to do this, I do what y'all tell me. Y'all have to figure out how to fill these vacancies. Some of it is, a lot of it is the salaries just are not equipped, are not keeping up with what the market requests. These jobs are getting harder and harder. I was talking to a mentor of mine who's a DSS director, and I said, how do we do this? What do we do about the dearth of people going into DSS? And she said, make the job easier and pay them more. And so making the job easier is something that we can really push on the General Assembly to do. There are a lot of, some would say, superfluous, like over-the-top requirements for these folks. The audits they have to do, things like staying overnight in a DSS office that are not helping us retain these employees. And attracting them, I think more funding, higher salaries would go a lot further than, would do a lot to do that. We're also seeing vacancies in finance, in just everywhere. So part of what we're doing is really going out, listening to our folks, finding out where the sore spots are, helping with recruiting. Y'all have a really wonderful manager here in Granville County, but a lot of counties are losing their managers. These folks are retiring, these folks have had it. And so where is this new crop of local government employees coming from? A way we're trying to do it at NCACC is through our Strategic Management Services Program, Strategic Member Services Program. This is a group of folks funded via a grant we got from the General Assembly in 2021, a group of recent MPA graduates who go and work in a county and provide technical assistance in any number of fields. It might be in the finance, it might be compliance around ARP, it could be anything. With the idea that these MPAs get in a local government, get excited about it, want to stay in local government, and like me, make that their career. That's not enough. And so again, we, y'all, us, really have to collaborate on finding solutions and how to attract and retain folk into local government. It's just not a career that people are seeking to do anymore. It's hard. It's hard. And then I talked about member county visits. Really just love getting out and seeing parts of North Carolina I would never see. Like I said, I'm from Durham, so this is just up the road for me. But we've been to Stokes County, we've been to Cherokee, we're going to New Hanover, we're going to Davie. And it really is a pleasure just to kind of get out of Raleigh and have things that seem very theoretical to us when we're in the legislative building. It's really great to see them real on the ground and talk to the people that are doing the work. So thank you for having me today. It's a pleasure. And then I think I have a couple more slides, next slide. So now, I've been talking very quickly, I'm gonna slow down and talk about our legislative goals process. This is one of my favorite things we do at NCACC. It's really lovely to see people from all different parts of the state with all different political views come together and develop consensus on a list of county priorities. So this is the mission statement, I'll read it. The association's legislative goals process is thoughtful, deliberative, inclusive, and fair. The investment of time and energy and a value of full discourse strengthens our association as we advocate for counties. That's me, I do that, advocate for counties. The process is designed to create an informed grassroots organization and to build a cohesiveness of purpose within the organization that, in turn, grants a degree of credibility to the association. All counties and all county officials are invited and encouraged to participate in the legislative goals process. So, all that means is that we want everybody to participate. All y'all are welcome, but you gotta act right. But all y'all are welcome. And we really want to make sure that Cherokee has as much say as New Hanover, Granville has as much say as Mecklenburg in our legislative goals process. I'm gonna talk to you about how we do that. Next slide. So, beginning in May, the goals process kicks off, and what we do is send out a call to all 100 counties. We say, hey, those things that you wanna do in your county but are prohibited, you don't have the authority from the General Assembly to do so, you don't have the appropriate funding that you need, there's something prohibitive in you doing the work you want to do in your counties. So we ask for suggestions from all 100 counties on legislative goals proposals, things you want to see get done in the legislative biennium. So we, as staff, take all of those. We usually get 400 or so goals proposals. We sort through them by subject area. So we put them in one of our 7 steering committees. Commissioner Cozart remembers this. He did an excellent job as our public education chair. So we sort all of these into the 7 different steering committees, and then those committees meet and talk about all 100 or whatever issues that are in that bucket. And what they do, they amend them, they reject some, they synthesize some, because the truth is a lot of counties are facing a lot of the same issues. You're not alone in Granville County. If it's happening in one county, it's happening in 2 or 3 others, probably, maybe a dozen. Anyway, so all of those proposals, hundreds of them, are sorted into our 7 different steering committees. And then we all get in, coalesce, amend these legislative goals proposals. We whittle that number down to probably 100, and then the process keeps going and we meet our legislative goals committee. This is a committee of county commissioners from all across the state. We really try to pay close attention to demographics. So we want to make sure that we have rural counties represented, urban counties represented, east, west, north, south, Republicans, Democrats. Everybody's welcome. It's about 25 folks, and they whittle that number down further to probably about 60 goals. And then in November, oops, I missed a step. And then in November, yes, we have our Legislative Goals Conference. And this is a conference where all 100 counties send a delegate to Raleigh. We present that last list of maybe 60 or so goal proposals. There's very robust, very sometimes intense discussion about these proposals. Commissioner Hammond shaking her head. It gets a little heated sometimes, but that's what we do. This is the government. We come to consensus on those 60 or so goals. That number gets whittled down to about 50, and then that's our legislative agenda for the biennium. We do this process every 2 years. It really is comprehensive. It really is deliberative. It really is inclusive. And I think as, government feels less and less like that, it feels like less and less people have an opportunity to say stuff. I think this process is really important and emblematic of how government's supposed to work. It's supposed to be folks who have different opinions and different ideas coming together and deciding what's best for all of us. So thank y'all for doing that every day. And thank you for participating in this process. I've been saying on this little road show that we've been on during the interim, that now's the time to think of something new. Don't dust off that legislative goal that you submitted 10 times. Either think of a new way to say it or think of an actually new idea. Because, think of an actually new idea. I think it'll be a really wonderful opportunity to have a bright, fresh agenda for our legislators when they return in January. That's the end of my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
All right, do any members of the board have anything for Ms. Harris, recent UNC School of Government's Advanced Leadership Core Training graduate.
Yes.
Put a plug in for that class if you like
It's-
while you're here.
It's really, I'm serious. You asked, so I'm gonna do it. I'm so serious. If you have not taken the Advanced Leadership Core class at UNC, you should do it. It is truly revelatory. I am not an elected official, but I learned so much about elected officials, how y'all work, the challenges in leading. I learned a lot about myself. I met lots of different kinds of people that I wouldn't engage with otherwise. It was, my mind's blown. I went home and journaled about it. That's how like mind blown I was. So you should all do it.
And what county is it that has 100% board participation?
Brunswick County.
Can you believe that, y'all?
Yeah.
5 County, 100% of their board
All
staff
5 of their
has gone
boards done
through-
it. They have a small board. There was only 5
It's only
of them.
5 people, right?
Yeah.
So, advanced leadership course of the UNC School of Government, which you can take 3-hour classes with them, and I know what many of you have, but it's a 5-day intensive course.
It's residential. You like don't get to go home and like think about the stuff. You stay on site.
And it's a scholarship application process. You have to, actually put in an application, and I would encourage all of y'all to go. The sleepaway camp is what I call it. It's a good experience.
Sleepaway camp. I called it leadership camp. My friends were texting me, "How's leadership camp this week?" It was great. So you should do it. Happy to answer more questions about that too, if you have them.
All right, no more questions from Ms. Amber. All right, we appreciate,
one.
oh, Jimmy's
Well-
got one. Here we go.
It's not really a question, but we're right in the middle of revaluation, and of course, we're hearing a lot about, people having problems paying the current taxes. We currently have 3 tax deferments, circuit breaker tax deferment for senior citizens, disabled veterans exclusion, and a elderly disabled exclusion. I would like to see this made a simpler process, higher income limits, and, just a simpler application process. Also, it would be nice if the state could go to a homestead exemption for the first, say, $150,000 of value for people over 75 years old. And,
This sounds like Commissioner Gooch is getting ready to propose a goal for our next,
yeah,
I'll say, you finish what you're saying.
but, I'm pretty much done. It just, to help our senior citizens across the board.
You're absolutely right. This has been an issue. I know Matthew Winslow's going to be here later, but I spent a lot of time talking with him about this last legislative session. We really are trying to figure out a way to, we spent a lot of time on it. Not just he and I, but like a whole bunch of tax assessors in the state, trying to figure out a way to lessen folks' property tax burdens. Like North Carolina, like I said, is growing. It's a lot of places are gentrifying. We got to figure it out. The challenge is that these policies have to be equitable across the state. And so that does make things more difficult, but
We need to help.
it makes
the
things more
needy.
difficult. But there's a solution to be had. I've talked a lot about imagination up here today, and I think the right people in the room can figure out an appropriate solution for property tax relief for people. It's not okay if somebody's lived in the house for 30 years, paid it off, and then they lose it behind some taxes. That's a failure.
And, we're not talking about the people that's living in a $1 million house that's got substantial income every year. We're worried about the people who are struggling to pay.
Who are really living off of their Social Security and their retirement. Yeah, I hear you. It's a challenge.
all right. Ms. Harris, thank you so much for the work you do for our association. and
Sure.
Thank you for coming up to Granville tonight.
Yes,
Stop.
thank you.
All right, so we are actually 30 minutes, 32 minutes ahead of schedule. So you guys are absolutely, it's very fast talkers, yes. And a board that has prepared themselves in advance with their questions and those things, so we don't have a lot of, just turn the page and the answer is right there for you type questions, which is great. So. And Representative Winslow, Amber, will not be joining us tonight. He had a death in the family and had to travel, so if you were gonna stick around specifically to see him.
No, I came to see y'all.
Okay, good. Just wanna make sure.
Right answer.
Yes, good. So the clerk is out right now preparing dinner. Did you want to fill the void with anybody further in the presentation that wanted to jump up and go now?
Well, I wondered, I do see some of our municipal partners are here. I don't know if any of them might be prepared to present before dinner, but that would enable us to shorten the after dinner, or we could just take a break and wait until dinner is ready. Either way.
Well, I'm actually, when we start talking about all the grandiose ideas we have for the year and what we want to do with life, I'm thinking maybe we need to start a social gathering before our meeting where we have an opportunity for citizens to come and talk to the board. We'll have to work through the logistics from a staff perspective, but then I'll spring for a case of water and we can stand in this room or in the foyer of the restroom area and have 30 minutes just to meet and greet one-on-one. And I'm, guilty of rushing to a meeting and getting here 10 minutes beforehand and, not having time to center myself. But I'll make a commitment this year as chairman, if we could have a opportunity for a social gathering, get to know one another, I think that'd be great. But we might as well take this time now to kind of just make some mingle in this room. Like I said, the clerk is, Ms. Deborah Weary is outside getting things together for our dinner. If the board would so move a recess motion, we'll go ahead and do that until we get back from dinner. We'll try to get back from that. It says we got 6:30 as our legislative updates. So that's a pretty good stretch. I believe we'll try and hit that mark exactly on time and we can knock it out from there, so.
I was just gonna make the motion, but if you wanted to say something.
No, I said, you're gonna start doing that. Is there anything to vote on or just nod the head? I think we should.
We need to get with staff to make sure we don't have some, we have to advertise, obviously, and then it's gotta be recorded, all that kind of junk, but we have to figure that out.
Okay.
One thing we do have tonight, we have Emergency Management Director Jason Revis here tonight for the one action item that we have. We could go ahead and do a vote on
He's
that.
ready for it.
And that would enable Jason to go home and, he can stay for dinner if he likes, or he can go home and have dinner with his family if he doesn't go ahead.
Good catch. All right, well, so this is our 7 o'clock, no? Yes.
Yep.
One of our 7 o'clock items, but we'll just go ahead and knock it out with Jason. Three of us here tonight from Emergency Services.
So thank you, Chair, fellow commissioners. So what I'm bringing forward tonight is a recommendation from the Fire Commission that was voted on at the last Fire Commission meeting. So what they're proposing is to provide departments up to $40,000 in local funding to be utilized in the state 50/50 fire grant. By allowing this $40,000, that would be the local match. The state match would be $40,000. So allow them to get up to $80,000 in equipment. As of now, there is enough money in the remaining current fiscal year budget as well as the fire tax fund balance. If this was to go through. A few key things is to note with this, the applications for this has to be submitted by March 1st. So you see it's a tight timeline, and if they were awarded this, it would be awarded on or by May 15th according to state statute. And then they would have to have all the invoices and proof submitted by September 30th, which will go into next fiscal year.
If I may, the March 1st deadline, is that a state set deadline?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
This is an item for the 23-24.
Yes, sir. It'll be in this fiscal year budget, but it will have to roll over into next one because of they won't be able to have all the equipment in to provide the submittals.
And they have to get that, each department had to get that application in by March 1st.
That is correct. It has to be submitted by March 1st.
But this $40,000 would make it easier for them to do that match.
Yeah, it would allow them to provide the local match of the $80,000 grant. And this will be just for the 12 volunteer fire departments. It would exclude Oxford and Butner, which are not eligible for this.
Board, you've got a recommendation before you from our fire commission to provide up to $40,000 in funding if awarded by the state 50/50 grant.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion that we follow the recommendation of our fire commission and, provide up to $40,000 of funding.
I second that.
Okay, we got a motion by Commissioner Wilford, and seconded by Commissioner May, accept our fire commission's recommendation. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none,
Mr. Chair, if I could just add a little bit of context to this. So the fire tax in its first year and a half, the first year's budget and this year's budget to date have left us with approximately $1.2 million fund balance in the fire tax. And so this was one of the questions that the Fire Commission was wrestling with, how to potentially make a recommendation of the use of some of that funding to get some things moving that need to be moving. When we took a look at what departments had been able to submit to the state in terms of applications, on average, we were getting, once they make truck payments, once they buy things that they have to buy that maybe aren't eligible for the state funding, on average, they were requesting less than half of the state funding that they were eligible for. So we were kind of missing the boat in terms of leveraging that additional state contribution to our fire protection system. And so I think this was a wise recommendation by the Fire Commission to leverage some of these saved up fire tax funds to make sure that we were maximizing these state 50/50 grants across the board.
And there was a key change this year. It was up to $60,000 in previous years. This year, they bumped it up to $80,000.
all right, so we've got that motion on the floor, and with no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Great.
Jason, I just want you to take this back to the fire commission, since we got a few minutes. The road I think it's Lewis Chapel Road, right there beside Grandma Rule. It's a dead end road. And the other road was I guess supposed to have been connected to that road. They stopped it. Bend Tree Drive. And it's just a little space with just a couple of hundred yards across there. So now Grandma Rule had to come all the way back down to come down to the cemetery to go back up, what's the name of the road? Sterling Carrington Road to hit, Cornwall Road to go back in there to serve those people in those houses in there. It's anything that we can do to look at so we can.
So I'm not familiar with the exact spot you're looking at, but I'll go research it.
Okay.
And see if I can find a solution, because I'm not sure if it's private roads or public state roads. I'd have to research.
Lewis Chapel is a dead end road. Lewis Chapel, right up, next road right beside, Grandma Rule.
Yes, sir.
And on the other end of it, the same road is run. They look like they stopped on one end, went back to the road on the other end and stopped it. And so, what can we do to make that connection so the response time for that part for Grandma Rule to come in there?
I will look into it.
Serve those folks in there. Okay.
Is that a subdivision?
Mm-hmm.
Might be something.
Okay, so the caterer is ready for us. We're gonna give them a few more minutes, and we're gonna take that mix and mingle idea. If somebody wants to call for the,
I'll call for the, adjournment for dinner.
Second.
okay, we've got a motion by Commissioner Hinman, seconded by Commissioner Wilford, to recess until 6:30 on the dot, when we hear from our legislators. Any discussion? We're gonna mix and mingle for 5-7 minutes, and then we're gonna go out and have dinner, right?
Yes.
All those in favor, aye? Aye. So, the prayer at the beginning of the meeting will suffice as our blessing for the dinner.
Rub-a-dub-dub. Thanks for.
I think I would do Sterling.
That's right, I sent it on to
Amber's
the
very
city.
good.
My recommendation.
very easy to follow.
Back in session from our recess for dinner. I hope you all had an opportunity to move around and talk to folks, which is always a good thing. So with that said, we'll bring up, again, Matt Winslow had an unexpected death in the family, had to travel, so we've got Representative Frank Sossaman and Senator Mary Wills Bodie with us. And I think that our representative lost the coin toss, so he's going to go first.
You ready now?
Yes, sir.
All right. You were waiting for your attorney to get here. I probably should wait for my attorney to get here before I say anything. But it's an honor to be here with you tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to serve, not only serve you, but serve with you to see things move forward for Granville County. You are well aware of the appropriations that we received for projects this past year we've already seen some movement. Triangle North Industrial Park, we're already seeing some movement there as a result of the $11.5 million we received for Vance Granville Community College. To me, it's amazing how it happened so quickly. And I know there's other movement that's taking place. I just continue to see Granville County and the municipalities in Granville County lining themselves up and positioning themselves for growth and for expansion. And I know everybody's not happy about that. You have some people who whine and moan about everything that changes. But that's what we have to deal with. As a pastor, I know every verse of those songs. And the choir would sing it quite often, you know. But the $10 million that Oxford received for water was wonderful. $5 million for South Granville Water and Sewer, and the list goes on and on and on. And hopefully in the short session, it's still a big question mark what might be available. I've already heard that we won't be able to have as many projects per representative as we did in the long session. What that might be, I don't know. But I'll still be asking like I did before. The state budget, even though some people still complain about it, overall was good in that the teachers received a 7.4% raise. Miss Eva Clayton continues to write letters to the editor that I have to give a response to, that she's not giving us the correct information. It's not quite as bad as some people make it out to be. Education certainly has challenges, but I have been really encouraged to see Stan make some bold moves in looking at the budget. And I think that's what every school system has to do. They look to the county for more money, they look for the state for more money, and they look to whoever else they can find for more money. But all of us have to work within our means. And I know that's not real popular. It doesn't win a lot of elections for a person, but that's what we got to do. That's a hard, cold facts. There have been many other pluses in the budget. The $2 billion for water and sewer improvement projects, the state held that as a high priority, and that's one of the reasons across the state those kind of projects were funded. I have been working aggressively on forums. There's 120 representatives, and out of 120 representatives, I'm the only representative that does forums. I do them because I want to inform and educate the people. I have chosen the topics based on polling, based on the kind of response I get from constituents about broadband, transportation, mental health. I'll be having two on human trafficking. We're going to actually have a third one in mental health forum in Granville County in Butner this Tuesday night, tomorrow night at 6 p.m. I got a request from a pastor in Oxford that he wants to host one at his church. So that to me, that's encouraging that people realize the importance of getting the information out. And so I'll be talking to him and trying to arrange something at his church that would be beneficial. But the forums have been received well. What else I do on the forums is I make all the information that's provided by either providers or the state or whatever agencies are there, I make their information available to the public. They sign up, and then I'll email them that information. Sometimes the state will have one of those cue cards, and they can pull up the information immediately. And that's invaluable to have the slides that they have presented, that information, to know who to call, because they give us a list of names and phone numbers. One of the engineers in transportation gave his cell number. I don't know if he was planning on changing it the next day, but but he gave his cell number, which I thought was very bold. But those kind of forums are extremely good. I'm working with Dr. Cozart now to have a daycare forums. If we're going to be competitive in the state, economically, we have got to have daycares, good daycares. We've lost 4% of our daycares over the last couple of years, and we have more daycares that are considering closing. So the state in the short session they've talked some about talking about daycares and providing some funding that can help daycare stay alive. The federal funding is gone, and they got used to that, but it's not there anymore. So I hope the state will be able to do something that will help fund our daycares and support our daycares. Dr. Cozart and myself, along with the Chamber of Commerce in both counties, are also talking about recruiting new daycares. We're going to address the business community and challenge them to consider having a daycare in their facility. It would be a plus for the employees. It would be a win-win situation. We're going to be addressing pastors and churches to give consideration to start daycares in their churches for ministry and to serve the public. That's what they're there for. And most of them have the space in the room. So, and I'm also looking to maybe get some additional funding for startups. So, and we're looking at targeting entrepreneurs as well. But all of these things are needs in our communities, and I'm just trying to address those needs. And the response has been overwhelmingly positive in all these areas because of it. We're going to do a education forum. We're going to do a long list of others, the top 3 cancers in our area. The health department does a great assessment, and those assessments make us aware of the top 3 cancers. We're going to be doing a forum on that so we can have healthier people. We're going to look at workforce development. We're going to do a redo, an update on broadband, and we're going to do an update on transportation. A lot of the governmental leaders missed out on the transportation forum that we had in October because I gave a 3 o'clock time frame to talk to the engineers that were there. Every governmental leader was encouraged to come, and we had a fair participation, but there's some of those towns that didn't come that are now reaching out to me about their roads. I mean, I'll do what I can, but it would have been nice if you'd been able to talk face to face to the engineers that were there. My point is, these things are not just, I'm not having them to keep me busy. They are keeping me busy, but I'm not having them to keep me busy. I'm having them to help you as governmental leaders and the public become educated and informed about topics. Mental health, for example. Since we closed down the mental health department, it has been, it's been terrible because now we subcontract the services out and nobody knows where to get the services. They don't know how to access services. So these forums gives them a list of providers. The providers are there. They get to meet them face to face. They get to ask them questions. They get to hear presentations. They get to take material home. Again, all of that's for the sake of the public. And anything you can do to help promote these forums would be worth your while and my while. Another thing I'm doing is organizing task force. And I started in Vance County with public safety and community development. And I'll be doing the same kind of task force here in Granville, education, health, and economic development. But those task forces have already started moving the dial forward in those communities on public safety and community development. We're getting ready to launch a huge litter campaign in Vance County. And I hope that it will succeed, that we can duplicate it here in Granville County, because litter is becoming a major problem. I'm even talking to the prison system about what we can do to get prisoners back on the road, and they're telling me that the General Assembly's got to give them some money. So I'm going to talk to our leaders about us seeing what we can do to get those guys back on the road picking up trash. So there are so many other things. Let me just give you a couple other things, and then I'll sit down. I think that it's so important for people to be aware of grants that are available, that any grant information I get or any grant information that I find out about, I break my neck to make sure that you receive it and the proper person receives it, whatever it might be, because those, as you know, have a deadline, and it's important that you get those funds when they're available, and they are available. The GO grants, our schools have really responded, and 4-H has responded to the GO grants. I just presented one to the 4-H club for their Pop Shots group, about $20,000. So those things are invaluable. South Granville just got a $20,000 GO grant. The Governor's Awards, I went to every school, every high school, and spoke to the principal or guidance counselor, sat down with them and talked to them about those awards, because where we don't have money, and even though the schools give a certificate and recognize people, the Governor's Award raises it to a higher level. When we can recognize with the Laurel Wreath Award outstanding athletes, outstanding coaches, outstanding athletic directors, all of that ups the game a little bit. And all it takes is a little time to fill out an application and turn the application in. I always track it until we get the final answer. So there are things that we can do to help improve morale, things we can do to help people understand that they are appreciated, and those awards are a part of that. And then the scholarships that are available, I want to make sure that everybody is aware of those scholarships. And I never thought that I would get the kind of constituent request in my office, but they keep me busy about everything from A to Z. And I'm not complaining. I'm just saying there's a lot of need out there, and people are searching for some answers, and I'm glad to have an answer. At least if I don't have it, I'll find out the answer. But thank you for working with me as we work together for the same purposes to better Granville County and every municipality in Granville County. If you have any questions, you can see me later, or I'll be glad to. I know Senator, she's got all kinds of things lined up. I thought about even singing a song before I left. That might help. That might help wind it up or something, you know. No, but God bless you all. If you have any questions at any time, please reach out to me. I'll be glad to meet with you or a group of you, and do my best to assist you. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you for what you've done. You've done awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
you, did we talk about his cousin Lenny? Who is the,
He's always such a tough act to follow, but I'll do my best.
he's a county manager, he was at the Managers Association, so last name we got chit-chatting, he turned out to be his cousin.
So I'm trying to get this out for Terry, if you want to take a look at it.
Okay, cool.
That's the agenda.
Well, I had 2 hours prepared, but I cut it down. So I'm Senator Mary Wells Bodie, and I have the honor of representing you all in the North Carolina State Senate. I think I know just about everyone in this room, so I want to say thank you for your partnership in working hard for Granville County. I often say that this is the best Senate district in North Carolina because that's the truth. But I also want to let you know that we have one of the best legislative delegations. Representative Winslow and Representative Sossaman and myself, we work really hard together. It doesn't matter that I'm a Democrat and they're Republicans. We are all very narrowly focused on delivering for Granville County. And I know that Representative Winslow wishes he could be here tonight. He ceded his time to me. I'm just kidding. But honestly, feel free to reach out to us at any time. It doesn't matter if it's in the northern part of the county and Representative Winslow only represents the southern part of the county. We are all in on Granville County. And so whatever we can do to assist, whether it's the local or county level, or I know we have some folks from the hospital here, anything that we can do for you, we stand ready, willing, and able. So with that said, I'm going to talk a little bit about legislation that was passed this past year, or things that this past year that maybe you didn't get a chance to update you guys on when we were all here in the fall after last legislative session. So the first thing I want to talk about is Medicaid expansion. So Medicaid expansion was passed in the fall before we adjourned, and it went live on December 1st. And in Granville County, we have had almost 1,500 people sign up for Medicaid expansion. And Medicaid expansion really serves the folks who make too much money to be on traditional Medicaid, but don't make quite enough to be able to afford health care on the Affordable Care Act, on the healthcare exchange. So it's kind of that missing middle that we've been talking about in North Carolina for about a decade. And it captures about 600,000 people in our state. And as of the 1st of February, we had 345,000 people enrolled in Medicaid expansion. So we are over halfway towards our goal of reaching all 600,000 in just 75 days. And that's really the result of our local DSS offices working really, really hard to get people enrolled so that they can have access to affordable health care. And so it's just, I really want to applaud everyone in the community who's worked really hard because this really matters. And, our healthy communities are what makes us productive and better positioned for the future. So, and here are just some statistics about Medicaid expansion and who has availed themselves of it. So we have about, I think I mentioned 4% of our adult population enrolled since December 1st. So that's great. Next slide. Great, okay. Moving on from healthcare to infrastructure. How many people in this room have heard of the S-Line? Awesome. So the S-Line is the Raleigh to Richmond high-speed rail. It's going to be one of the most advanced rail systems in the country. It's going to go, I think, at 110 miles per hour. It's going to reduce the time to travel from Raleigh to Richmond by an hour. But it's also going to improve the resiliency of our freight and supply lines. And that often doesn't get talked about a lot, but that's another really key aspect of the S-Line corridor between Raleigh and Richmond. And it just received, in this past December, the largest allocation of transportation funds our state has ever seen. We called it Billion Dollar Monday. We got $1.1 billion of federal money invested in the S-Line. And I know that the S-Line does not stop in Granville County. However, we have been talking to some municipalities in Granville County and would love to talk with all the municipalities in Granville County about a spur. And what a spur is that it will kind of delineate off of one of the main points. So whether that be Youngsville, Franklinton, Henderson, Norlina, and cut over into Granville County so that we can have an ancillary stop on the S-Line. We want Granville County to be connected to this high-speed rail because this is part of the future of transportation, not just for our state, but for our region and the whole Southeast corridor. So if you're interested in having that conversation, Representative Sossman and I have talked a lot about it, have talked with the Secretary of Transportation about it, would be happy to talk about what that could look like for any community in Granville County, because this will be a game changer. And we all feel very strongly that we don't want Granville County to be left behind. So happy to chat with you about that. I've become a bit of a transportation nerd since joining the Senate, and I believe that Representative Winslow and Sossman also serve on the Transportation Committee in the House. So we would ready, willing, and able to have those conversations when folks want to have them. Oh yeah, next slide. Okay. So we've covered healthcare, infrastructure. Want to talk about one thing that might get passed this legislative short session. We heard last week from the leadership in the House and the Senate that video lottery terminals, and I guess let me back up for a minute. Last fall, casinos and video lottery terminals, what we call VLTs, were on the table for passage in our state. It had been paired with Medicaid expansion. And then it got bifurcated. So Medicaid expansion got passed, casinos and video lottery terminals got left on the table. So this upcoming legislative session, it has been telegraphed by the leadership in the House and the Senate that VLTs may make it through this legislative short session. And I wanted to take this opportunity to explain to you, kind of just at a very high level, video lottery terminals, they're I guess a video game terminal, also called a video slot machine or a video lottery slot machine. It's a type of electronic gambling device. We've seen them in gas stations or other stores across our state. We have some in Granville County. They're currently operating in a gray zone in our state. So they're not legal, but they're not quite illegal. And that's because these gambling VLT companies have been litigating in order to be able to operate in our state. And so that moment may come because I think the legislature perhaps feels like, well, if they're going to be operating here, they might as well be operating legally so we can regulate them. And one of the other really big reasons, as you can see, is the amount of money that they bring to our state. They will bring significant money both to the companies that operate them and through the Video Lottery Fund and the Lottery Commission. And where those dollars are slated to go are to historically Black colleges, some of the colleges in our university system, as well as a fund to provide, I guess it's tuition relief for community college, canceling community college debt. So I know that VLTs have been a bit of an issue in the northern part of the county, and potentially some of the crime related to VLTs operating, and that is a big issue. In states where VLTs operate, they have seen an increase in the area of violent crime and property crime. So I wanted to tell you kind of the good, the bad, the indifferent, what you can expect, what you need to know. Happy to talk more about this. The information on this slide was drafted from a bill from last session. It very well may change. That seems to be the only constant in the legislature is change. So this isn't the holy grail. It's not written in stone. But I a big part of my job is to relay what's happening in the legislature. So I think it's important that you guys are aware of what's happening down there and why it may or may not be happening. So that's the only slide. I'm happy to take any questions. Yes.
What's the appetite in the House and the Senate for the casino issue?
So I don't think casinos are going to be on the table for this legislative session. It's really the money is really in the VLTs, not the brick and mortar casinos. Casinos are, and what we saw last year is that some of the communities where they were slated as an economic development tool were not interested in having those casinos be part of their community. Do you have anything to add to that, Representative?
Yeah, Senator Berger, who was a driver of that, whatever it was, car, truck, tractor, bus, has pretty much said he's not going to deal with this short session. Now, he may circle the wagons again, but he received a great deal of opposition last time. And I was a part of that opposition. I didn't like it because he wanted to attach it to the budget. I don't like things attached to the budget. And they snuck some things in the budget that,
and it was going to his county, or his son.
Rockingham County.
In his county he's from.
Yeah, oh yeah, there was a lot of under the table thing kind of thing. But just like they dropped the number of hours to graduate from high school, that was slipped in the budget. And evidently the 11th hour. I'm hoping we get that changed in the short session. But that's conniving. I hate that part of politics.
Yeah, and I think part of it is, so we've had, our corporate income tax in North Carolina is bottoming out to zero, and we've had, in this last budget, we saw some pretty significant personal income, some expediting of the personal income taxes decreases that were slated over a decade. So, the legislature, we have to pass a balanced budget in North Carolina. One of the many reasons we have such a great bond rating is that constitutionally we have to pass a balanced budget. So the legislature is busy trying to find ways to offset some of those tax cuts. And this is an option that is currently on the table.
Will this come under the North Carolina Education Lottery division?
Yes, so the reason that, my understanding is that bringing this under the Lottery Commission will allow them to regulate it and license folks who are currently or would like to have a video lottery terminal enterprise.
Because they already have the digital instance online, which it's just like a casino machine, and it gives real money.
Sure. So that's certainly one argument that has been raised, and what we saw in the last legislative session that mobile sports wagering became legal in North Carolina. I don't know, I've seen the FanDuel commercials, as I'm sure anyone who was watching Taylor Swift's Boyfriend in the Super Bowl, that's now about to begin in North Carolina as well. You can look at our voting records. I'm not sure, I didn't vote for it, but I think this is kind of the next phase in that continuation. Yes, sir.
Senator, from a law enforcement standpoint, this is basically to regulate all those sweepstakes calls.
Sure. Yep.
So all the sweepstakes locations you see that operate in that gray area, this is to regulate them and have them start paying into this fund.
Sure, absolutely. And I think, again, when our Granville delegation met last week, we were talking about this, and it's my understanding that Lewisburg, from a local perspective, has put some rigor around how some of these enterprises operate, which might be a good data point for some of our local municipalities to look at from a public safety perspective if these VLTs are legalized and regulated and licensed. Yes.
So, I'm an anti-casino guy. and look at, the settlement just did for opioids and what that's going through, and I know who usually, unfortunately, people, become addicted to gambling as well, education, all the other things that come with it. Obviously, casinos operate in North Carolina now, and VLTs are in the gray area, and understanding this gives them a venue. Are there, I'm gonna ask you and the county attorney, are there any caveats as a county that we can put on to ensure that we maybe put some, I don't wanna see casinos go to Granville. That's, I'm speaking on behalf of Commissioner May. But is there any caveats, are there any manner, local legislation that can, obviously the state controls where they go, but you know, they were picking counties that were already impoverished to put the casinos,
Sure.
which is only gonna exacerbate the poverty and the addiction and all the other issues. So they're gonna have nice buildings, nice cars, and they're gonna have households full of addicts and not feed their families. So that being said, off the platform, is there anything that we could do locally?
You know, I don't know of anything off the top of my head. I think a lot of the resistance was at the grassroots level. It was the community kind of coming together and saying, we're not interested. But I think that, you know, it has been used as an it has been sold as an economic development tool. And so for counties like Edgecombe, Nash, Rockingham, and I believe there was one out west, were kind of the original sites. But it's something I think we're all gonna have to, you know, stay vigilant on. And if it's not something that the people of Granville County are interested in, we're all gonna have to be singing from the same song sheet. Representative Sossman, do you have something to add to that, or?
No, that's about it, what you just said. There's not a whole lot more that can be done other than make our voices heard early on.
And, yeah, so, yes.
So I'm gonna let you off the hook on that one.
Okay.
Because I've got questions about the Medicaid. I
Okay.
appreciate the Medicaid expansion, but you did make a statement about all the people that need to be gotten back onto the Medicaid expansion that have to go through the DSS workers, which means the county has to pay the DSS workers. Is there any, I mean, and I know you all help with part of that payment, but is there any way to get that expanded and to be able to get more people to be able to do this? Because like you said, that's a lot of people for 3 or 4 workers that have to get done, and the state regulates how much time they've got to do it in. And,
Sure.
And so, I mean, is there any way that you all can push, and I thank you for pushing the Medicaid in, but can we push getting some more money to help pay these employees so that we can get this done before we're fined or taken over by the state because we didn't get something that we can't possibly get done in time?
An unfunded mandate, essentially, is what, yeah, we'd be happy to talk about, you know, where the need is. I think we were, I don't wanna say we were building the plane as we flew it, I mean, but, and I think, you know, part of it was, DHHS not knowing when Medicaid expansion was gonna go live. But really, I think to your point, understanding the last 90 days, what's worked, what hasn't worked, do we need more workers? How can DHHS be supportive? Because the folks at DSS are the front line to helping making sure these people get health care. And I think, you know, at Granville County, I know we spend a lot of money, especially the county, on health care and paying for all sorts of things because we're fortunate to have a hospital here. So, and, you know, all of this kind of fits together. And I know we all care about making sure folks are healthy. So I'll speak on behalf of Representative Sossman. We'd be happy to have that conversation.
Yes, because I mean, there's many of those programs that if somebody comes in to apply for any of those programs, our DSS employees who are fantastic have this much time to get it done. And if they don't get it done, then the state comes in and goes, bad boy. And then they say, okay, we're gonna take you over now you have to pay it yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and so we have to find either a way of getting that expanded, getting, you know, the time limit expanded, getting more employees, doing something to accomplish what they've asked us to get done in the length of time that they've asked us to do it in.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, yes.
Manager had wanted to chime in on that, I believe, right?
Just that I was trying to remind myself, I know that in the late fall, sort of in November and December, we were updating the board on the different pots of sort of one-time and ongoing aid from the state that were helping to cover some of our new staffing costs. And actually, I think there's a possibility that all of the costs, we have 7 new positions at DSS. I'm not sure that all of them are filled. I have asked Ms. Toussaint for an update on that. But anticipating that at least most of those costs will actually be covered by the state reimbursements. In Medicaid, our costs are reimbursed at a 75% rate. And so that plus some of the one-time funding should cover most of our expenses in any case. So that's a good thing, and appreciate that at least that much is coming back to us.
It's up to the senator. I mean, this is a county retreat, but the floor is yours, Senator.
Howard's gonna go to my head, yes.
I'm gonna go back to sweepstakes.
Uh-oh.
On my behalf, myself, I'm sort of agreeing with, in Oxford, we've seen an increase in violent crime stemming from those locations. Approving them, I think, is going to be really a problem for not just Oxford, everyone's center. So I hope that you guys take that back to them and bring that to their attention. Because we have this overwhelming police department in Oxford. I'm quite sure it's doing the same to everyone inside here too.
And to be clear, the data point that I mentioned about the 7.5% increase in violent crime and 6.7% increase in property crime, that is for a state that had legalized VLTs. So that data point is not an increase in violent crime and property crime for a state in which it was operating in a gray zone or it was illegal. And so
Your mic is off.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
I can.
So I was just saying that those data points that I had mentioned, the 6.5% in violent crime and 6.7% increase in property crime, is a data point from a state in the Midwest. I believe it was Illinois, where they had legalized VLTs. So it was, that's just, I had fiscal staff at the legislature just do some research on some other places, just so we would have a little bit more information. Yes.
I think one of the issues with sweepstakes thing is locations where they will be approved to seek. Salons and one thing, like the gentleman back here was saying, the commissioner back here was saying, when you go to these sweepstakes salons, you don't see people hanging out in front of the sweepstakes salon. They have a locked door, you gotta get buzzed in, and you deal with whoever's the attendant there. But the issue is when they started allowing it going into gas stations where alcohol is sold, some of these gas stations are allowing smoke, allowing people to smoke within the gas station. It's making community members not even want to go to those stores any longer. And it just has become a gathering place for people who aren't up to no good. The drug dealers, stuff like that. I mean, they sit at a sweepstakes, spend $20 to sit there and just hit penny slots all day and wait for the next sale to come around. So that is the issue that we're having. So it's one thing to legalize it, but I think regulating it, there needs to be more discussions on how to regulate it, where it should be allowed, whether it should be a licensed business, if that's what they deal with, and if you do something a certain way, then your license gets pulled. But a place like a gas station, I've seen people sitting at the slot machine, smoking a cigarette, hiding their beer on the side. There gotta be a balance to this,
Absolutely, and I think that's, so it was my understanding that Lewisburg, the town of Lewisburg had really taken this upon themselves because they had been experiencing similar issues, and I'm happy to pull that ordinance and I can share it, so our local municipalities and our county commissioners can be aware of the framework. that we could potentially be working in to your point, do what we can to regulate and maintain a healthy community. There are 3 other things I just wanted to mention real quick before I forget. Community wells and water management in the the southern corridor of our county. Been working with many of our county commissioners about some potential concerns in that part of the county, and just wanted to let everyone know that we have received an email back from DEQ saying they hope to give us a response on some of those issues soon. So hopefully that is soon and sooner rather than later. And I'm sure county commissioners will keep you updated on that front. The other thing I wanted to mention, Representative Sossaman and I were at a meeting with our community college just to piggyback off of your childcare, and are really interested in potentially at Triangle North getting a child care center at Triangle North in partnership with the community college. We all know VGCC has a five-star child care facility, and so we're in the early phase of having some of those conversations and really trying to meet that need. So appreciate Representative Sossaman's partnership on that. And then the last thing I'll say is that in the other part of Senate District 18, the non-Granville County part, my lesser favorite part of Senate District 18, we'll say, we have a new manufacturer for some opioid treatment drugs. It's a drug that is supposedly better than Narcan. It works faster and lasts longer. And the company told me that they're going to be working with 5 counties in our state and sending, I think it's 4,000 units of this drug in total to 5 counties. And so I haven't had a chance to talk to Representative Sossaman about this, but I talked to Representative Winslow. Would love to make sure that Granville County is one of those 5 counties. And would also, I think we have some opioid task force members here. Would love to potentially bring some of those folks from that company and to talk about what they've seen done with opioid settlement money in other states, what's worked, what hasn't worked, what they see coming around the corner. And so while I have, I think, a couple opioid task force members here, I wanted to just let you know about that update, and hopefully we can get some of those units of drugs into this community to help with the opioid issue. So that's all I have. Happy to take any other questions. Didn't use my full 2 hours.
You're perfect. Vice Chairman Gooch is the chairman of our opiate task force, so he got the message loud and clear.
Yes, thank you.
So we've already handled the fire department grant funding by giving the fire department that issue to go to the $80,000 request by backing up the $40,000 with county funds. So next we'll have our municipalities, and Creedmoor got the first shot on the 5-sided dice. So when you're ready, Mayor Wheeler.
He's ready.
And I see you got your management team with you here.
I'm gonna let them watch.
Okay, outstanding. Floor is yours, Mayor.
Thank you. And one of the things I want to say as far as Senator Bodie said.
Your mic's got to be turned on, sir.
Does that do it? As being a member of the opioid, I'm the pharmacy rep for that committee. And it's nice to know that something other than Narcan's coming out there. I don't know how they can come up with something that's faster, because that works pretty quick. But it'd be nice if we had something that was longer acting. So maybe that will work as far as that goes. Anyway, City of Creedmoor, population 5,043. The shining jewel of southern Granville County.
Yeah, right.
This is our commissioners, is Commissioner Ed Gleason, Mayor Pro Tem Georgiana Kaczynski, myself, Commissioner Emma Albright, Commissioner Wilkins, and Commissioner Robert Way. And we're going to recess for dinner, apparently. Next should be projects completed. This is for FY 2023 through 24. We purchased 2 LED message boards, which we have strategically placed them around town. They help us during parade times and road closures and this type of thing. We also use them for public service announcements and have been able to move them around without having to borrow them from the county. So those have come in very handy. The second thing is we've completed our R5707L project, which we partnered with NCDOT as far as doing landscaping around the new areas there for the Highway 56 area. So if you haven't been through there, it's kind of off right now because of the weather and the season, but during the spring and summer it really looks nice. We disposed of our 109 Park Avenue surplus property. That's right across from where the Lions Club building is. And this piece of property used to be a elementary grade school building. To tell you how long it's been there, I was in the second grade in that building. So it's got to be at least 20 years old. The second part, and we've got somebody in that building now that is remodeling, re-landscaping, and we're hoping to have a business in there very shortly. Last was disposed of the Hester Road surplus property. Those that may not know, all this was paid for or bought on Hester Road when Creedmoor was considering building their own water and sewer treatment plant, mostly sewer treatment plant. We've had a family, a young man and his wife, that bought this piece of property, were really excited. They knew they couldn't develop it for another 3 to 5 years, but it's the first property they've ever owned, and they were really excited to be able to be property owners. Next, we have the completion of the B.C. Roberts multipurpose field renovations that I got thrown there, with an irrigation system, new turf grass, safety fencing, signage for soccer, and installation of an event and sports plaza for basketball, pickleball, et cetera, so that some of that can be outdoors.
Where's the water park?
We've got a commissioner who wants a splash pad, but we're working on that.
I'm asking that question every day.
I was looking here.
I appreciate you, Commissioner, I appreciate it.
Just for those who don't know, B.C. Roberts was Battle Roberts, a longtime farmer and builder in southern Granville County. He was the main main baseball coach for even when I was a youngster. I played Little League baseball with him as coach, so he's very vital to our recreation areas even back then. The second thing is we partnered with North Carolina DOT and the Creedmoor Volunteer Fire Department on Elm and West Line Street repair project. This was one that was right in front of the fire department. The pipes were collapsing. There had been a ditch, for lack of a better word, in there that we were concerned with the fire trucks bottoming out as they came out and causing damage to that. And in corrections with DOT and a working relationship between the fire department and the city, we got all that repaired. And then we also installed a new Harris Park signage on Pecan Hill neighborhood. That's back in our Pecan Hill neighborhood. It's a sign that has the members of the committees and group of Pecan Hill that have passed away or received awards. And it's a permanent structure out there that we have set up so we can protect it from the weather. Next, we have partnered with NCDOT and Granville County Public Schools on traffic management following the Hawley Middle School relocation. As you can see, when we first started, we had people backed up going both ways. Now we only have them really backed up one way, so we're halfway to solving our problem. We are currently working on that to see if we can keep the stoppage going up, the one side up 56, and an improved traffic flow for that going on. We've also made a designation of Veterans Memorial Plaza, which is the part of the Battle Roberts. The Battle Roberts Field is located in the Veterans Memorial Plaza. So that's where, if you hear those two, they're basically the same place, just field versus the whole other structure. We are doing a purchase of a Veterans Memorial, which is right here. There'll be a picture. It'll be a solid, I think it's iron. Is that what it's going to be? Granite. Okay, granite cut out, and then we will have it dedicated, hopefully this year. The Veterans Affairs Committee is raising money. Some of the things we're doing for that are the hero banners, which are over here on the left side. If I remember correctly, depending on the size, they're going to be between around $250. We're also doing veterans bricks, which are smaller are $100 and the larger ones are $200. And you will see many of the Veterans Affairs Committee out and about with some of our other veterans doing fundraising efforts for the banners, the bricks, and any donations that we can get to develop this monument. The city is funding half, and the Veterans Organization, based on donations, is funding the other half. On this one here, we received a $250,000 state grant from North Carolina legislatures for City Hall renovation project, which we are in the process of looking where it will be, the money will be best spent. We also have a Furbo Street utility relocation, which will begin in March. This is an area, I believe it is in Golden Pond, that because of the way the pipes are laid in the ground, they have separated, it's washed away, and it has taken us several years to get permits and people to work on it, but we are finally getting to that stage. And then down at the bottom is our first, that I can remember, and I've been there a long time, is our first float for our city staff and our city commissioners. And I want to especially thank Mayor Pro Tem Georgiana Kaczynski and especially the city staff for putting together. Our Public Works Department put that together with help from citizens and some of our staff and commissioners. And as you can see, we had, even with the rain, we had a good turnout on that. And let's see if I can get my shakes to go here. Our current projects at this time, city and county shared grant writer partnership, which I understand from some of our county commissioners we're pretty close to. We have a stormwater fee rate study by Raftillis, 5-year capital improvement plan 2025 to 2029, wayfinding signs for key locations in Creedmoor. Because Creedmoor is Highway 50, we want to make sure everybody can find the businesses on the side streets. Evaluation of Holly School Annex for an athletic complex. We've looked at doing purely recreation, an aquatic center for Commissioner Way's splash pad. There's several ideas on the planning board. We're exploring a Tar River Land Conservancy Greenway from NC 56 to Brassfield Road, public parking lot with handicap accessible stalls on Main Street between Masonic Lodge and 5W property, increased maintenance of public parking lots on Elm, Masonic Street and Sandford Street, and a facade improvement program that we've had in place. We pulled it back for a little while during COVID, got it back up and running, and our first recipient was the Sunnyside Cafe on Main. If you've not been through there, that's where Owl House used to be on Main Street. As far as growth in Granville County, especially in Creedmoor, Creedmoor's current population, as I mentioned, is 5,043 citizens. We're looking at Brames Crossing, which already has water and sewer allocation and should start putting a shovel in the ground soon. They will have 170 residential units. The Creedmoor Village will have 700 residential units. That's conditional zoning, which has already been approved. Yorkshire, 500 residential units, which is done by LGI Homes. Their rezoning request from agricultural to single-family residence is up for discussion now. And then Mary Lane, which is on the other side from Creedmoor of Pleasant Grove Church, is looking at 800 residential units. That's pending a grander development. So with the new units, we're looking at 2,170 new units. And the way I have it figured at 2.5 people per home, that works out to an increase for us probably in the next 5 to 10 years of 10,468 citizens, which I remember how surprised I was when Oxford said a couple of years ago Mayor Sargent that they were going to double in size, but looks like we're on the same, not to their extent, but the same thing. All right, long-range opportunities. Small businesses are the heart of downtown. They draw people from different age groups, socioeconomic backgrounds. Our priorities for downtown: supporting existing businesses, managing and creating more public parking, Main and Elm Street, creating more office space, creating more space for retail and restaurants, creating more housing, more cultural events and programming, preservation of existing buildings. And I probably have the longest current active business on Main Street, and I've seen it from hardly anybody there to where this is probably one of the biggest stretches of improvement that I have seen on Main Street since my family's been there, and that was 1962. Finally, downtown revitalization for Creedmoor. This is our 2040 plan. We plan to support the small town character in downtown, build a gathering space for public events, festivals, and so forth, invest in consistent streetscape character for Main Street, improvement to gateways into downtown, relocation of utilities to back of buildings, and incentivize new construction, modernization, and adaptive reuse of buildings. Some of our city-hosted and partnered events have been MLK Unity Breakfast, which we just started a couple of years ago, fireworks at Lake Holt, which we do in conjunction with Butner and the City of STEM, Creedmoor Music Festival, which we have in Creedmoor every other year. Ours will be September 21st this year. We'll be in Creedmoor. Alive After 5, which we do in conjunction with the other communities in the Chamber of Commerce. National Night Out at South Granville High School will be October 1st, 2024. Fireman's Day Parade and fundraiser for Creedmoor Volunteer Fire Department. Main Street Trick or Treating. And if you haven't ever been there, the drugstore buys 3,000 pieces of candy for that Halloween. We give out 1 to 2 pieces, and it takes me 45 minutes to give away those 3,000 pieces of candy. So these kids, I think many of them are doubling back on me, but they do enjoy it.
Bunch of weasels.
We have the Veterans Day Breakfast, November 11th, 2024, which is a new project for us too. Our Christmas tree lighting is the Friday night before the Christmas parade. This year we did it in the community, the Willow Oak Room, because of the weather. That may be the instances we do in the future. And then the next day is first Saturday in December at 11 o'clock, we have our Christmas parade. We're especially proud this year of our Creedmoor Police Department. They held 69 community outreach events in 2023-24. We have a new police chief this year, and I didn't think anybody could be as good as Chief King, but Chief Wheelis has hit the nail on the head. He has hit the ground running and continued many of the projects that Chief King came up with. Along with our usual community cookouts, Coffee with a Cop, Medicine Drops, National Night Out, Shop with a Cop. New events this year include autism awareness vehicles, Pops with a Cop, back to school events, community bingo with seniors, Faith and Blue, Thanksgiving meals, Cookies with a Cop, and a Santa tree for seniors. The Creedmoor Police Department are also excited to announce the return of the Community Police Academy in the spring of 2024. So if you have anybody that wants to really get to know policing done the right way in a small community, tell them to get in touch with our folks at the Creedmoor Police Department. And next picture, this is some of our events, Public Works Day, Santa for seniors. And if I remember correctly, City Manager, we gave out all the tags we had on that tree, didn't we?
Yes, sir.
So it went over big, Coffee with a Cop, and as I mentioned, autism awareness. That takes care of Creedmoor. I wanted to make up for Mayor Sargent not being here, because I kind of made fun of her before and I shouldn't have. But now I see that I was tagging on it pretty good. But is there any questions? Please don't ask any. Yes? Anyway, thank y'all for your time, and thank you for your support of Creedmoor.
Appreciate you, Mayor. Next, we'll have STEM and Mayor Casey Dover. I see you've got a bunch of your board with you here as well.
Thank you, everybody. I, of course, forgot to print it out. So it's all good. I got it here. So STEM's had a pretty good year for 2023. I want to thank everybody for having us and working with you guys this year. It was an interesting year, to say the least. So I wanted to say STEM this year, you know, we're, as a part-time municipality, not having full staff, partnerships are super important to us. We partnered with the STEM Rooting Club for the first time, really in as you can see in our slide here, to put on our Easter egg hunt, which was extravaganza, I think you call it, and as well as our Veterans Christmas Day Parade. The Easter egg hunt was amazing. The kids, it rained, it was an ugly day, but they quickly threw up some tents, and the kids had a great time picking eggs and whatnot. The Veterans Day event was really well. They had a breakfast afterwards, a lunch afterwards that we served. I think I saw several of y'all there. That was super, super important to us in the community. As we get to the Christmas parade, that was a little unique. The folks who put that on spent a lot of time working, trying to mirror some legislation that Senator Bodie was trying to push forward, which required basically checking registrations, tags, inspections on vehicles prior to the event. And I don't know how many of you saw it, but a lot of that made the state news. It was all over. I know I had people from all over reaching out to me. So they just did a wonderful job. And so we're grateful for that partnership. And we look forward to this year. We're already working on this year. Go to the next one. All right, so this is what we did knocked out last year. We completed the property acquisition for downtown STEM. In 2017, we kicked this process off, and we bought what we call the Locklear property, which is the piece between Town Hall and the Dollar General. We had to take up Railroad Street, which we did, and basically prepped it for construction. 2022, we acquired the brick house next to Town Hall. And there was an old dilapidated house behind it. We bought that also as well. And then 23, we were able to finally buy the last 4 lots behind Town Hall. So the town now has ownership of both sides. And I'm gonna brag a little bit. We only owe $150,000 on all of it. We actually paid for everything. So we're free and clear debt free, with the exception of that little bit. So I'm really proud of our board for working hard, living within their means, and seeing the vision. We also just picked up, we're actually in the process right now of picking up a little small piece of parcel that we're going to clean up and put a really cool welcome to downtown STEM sign when the time comes. So we're really excited about that. All right, to the next slide. So in 2023, we partnered with the North Carolina Department of Commerce Rural Development Group. This group helps towns visualize a downtown, put a plan together. They do a SWOT analysis, which is kind of the dynamics around town, and they ask a bunch of questions. It takes community involvement. There's a small focus group. We've been working on that for several months. Wednesday night is our last meeting with the small focus group, and then they will go off, take all the things that's been gathered, come back to us in March, 1st of April, with what they think downtown STEM should look like. What that's going to look like, I have absolutely no idea. We're extremely excited about that. For the municipalities that haven't worked with that team, value for the money, I think it's going to cost us $200. That's paying his gas back and forth to Clayton. So it's well worth engaging that group if you haven't done it before. And the gentleman's Bruce, I can never pronounce his last name, is a pro. He knows what he's doing. So it's well worth that, Bobby, if you haven't done that. Housing and growth. So STEM currently has 350 rooftops in our corporate limits. We have several housing projects that were started or restarted in 2003 or approved. Mangum's Farms Phase 2, there's 146 new homes in it. Will begin its growth, breaking ground next month. We're excited about that because that particular property butts up to the Picture Branch piece of Tar River, and there will be hiking trails that connect that to the development, so it's pretty cool. 75 West is 100 homes. They're clearing land right now as we talk. We're in negotiations right now, getting the plat squared away. And then Kennedy Crossing, they're actually putting, which is 38 homes, and they're putting in the sewer water infrastructure right now. They're working on that. That will bring 290 homes to STEM, which is pretty much going to double our population. That's, I would say, probably the next 3 to 4, we'll have twice as many people living in STEM. So one of our other big projects is we totally paved all the roads in Mangum Farms Phase 1. This was left over from 2008 when the developers didn't actually do the roads properly. So we got by for 15 years, and finally we got to the point that we said we have to do this. So we, the board, again, living fiscally responsibly, we were able to pay for this out of our pocket. So it was $220,000, and our residents are extremely happy now, and we don't have to worry with it for another 10 or 15. We're not done paving. We got more paving to do, but we're on to that. Next project, Jack Day Park. I want to thank this board and your Parks Committee for your grants. We truly, truly appreciate them, and Mr. Pavlis works very hard and spends a lot of time and money, or of that money, spends it wisely. Our park is busy all the time. I might have told the story before, but one day I was going by the park just to do something, and there was a car from South Carolina, and I thought they were new here, and I thought, well, let me introduce myself. And I said, are you guys new to town? They said, no, we were just driving by, and we Googled parks near us, and your park came up, and we think it's amazing. So we've got 4 new pieces of equipment, 20,000 pounds of rubberized mulch, and I think Mr. Pavlis did that with a wheel and a burrow and a shovel. But it's very active, and again, we thank you for your partnership on that in the grants. We really, really, really try to utilize those in a way that's, and augment them to get us where we need to be. So we're very proud of that. All right, finally, our favorite subject, ETJ. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on this. You know, you guys didn't pass this, but one of the things that I wanna make sure about this, for us, we feel that Granville County, the southern end, we need to come together and sit in a room and figure out how we're gonna grow this together at the end of the day, right? Because we're all growing fast and we need to come together. All right, let's talk about 24. So Town of STEM with its growth. So what we're doing, we have to scale the town to grow with the people. I mean, it's coming, so we've got to be ready for it, right? You know, we're a small municipality, 5 commissioners, a mayor, part-time clerk, part-time zone administrator. So we have upgraded our banking system. We now can do ACH payments. We can do direct deposits. We are now implementing a P-card program. We've improved our financial controls. We've established descriptions for all of our town employees. Working on a code of ethics for our commissioners, improved filing systems, separated ordinance resolutions from our minutes. We had a bunch of work going on there. And finally, we're outsourcing our ordinance reviews and updates. So we're able to recognize some ARPA money for that, which we're really excited to be able to do. So that's the next step. We have 2 new town employees. We have a new zoning administrator. His name is Roman Acosta. Roman is very well, he is a planner by trade and has been very helpful in a short period of time he's been with the town. What we lack from a developer perspective, Roman, that's his wheelhouse, and he's been very helpful for us. We also have a new town administrator, a town clerk starting March 1st. We're very excited about that. And we are also trying to frame the town up for the conversion in the next couple years to mayor-manager form of government. I think that's where we're going to end up before it's over with, because we're just moving so fast. And there's only so many hours in the day. We're also upgrading our website. We're also looking at implementing optional SMS notifications for our people. And we're going to try to begin streaming meetings this year. So we've got a bunch on the plate. I think that's it. And finally, we're in the process of trying to select a site and do a feasibility, hopefully by the end of 24, for a new town hall for the town of STEM. So we put it up here now. We're going to make sure we deliver. So next year we got something to talk about. But again, thank you for your partnership and the hard work and the protesters.
Thank you. Thank you for sending them our way.
Absolutely. This is my favorite.
Unfortunately, representatives from the town of Stovall will not be able to make it with us this evening, so it'll put Butner moved up 1 slot. So, Mayor, if you and your manager, or just you, we're letting staff just watch tonight, I guess that's the trend.
He's not back in. Any questions?
There you go. It's excellent.
So good evening, everyone. I'm sorry, don't want to have neck problems. So hopefully everyone's having a great evening so far. I am the mayor for the town of Butner. My name is Dr. Linda Jordan. Next slide, please. As you can see here, this is our governing board. In December, we had some changes that occurred. To the right, you will see Ed Sosa, who is a new Butner Town Council member, Josh Shank, Vicki Daniels. Tom Lane is a veteran. Then we have Judy Cheek, and then our Mayor Pro Tem is Michelle Branch. In 2023, we also had a new manager, which is Jordan McMillan. We've had a new planning director, a new full-time event coordinator or public information officer focusing on community engagement and activities. We have a total of 62 staff employees. With growth in our community, of course, our staff will also increase. Next slide. So the town of Butner is growing slowly. As you can see, we have a population of 8,577. The town is 14 square miles, 7 miles long by 2 to 3 miles wide. The budget is growing. The town's budget was $7.2 million 2 years ago, and as you can see on town budget number 2 down here, it's approximately $11 million on the general fund. So in many ways, the town is like a blank slate for growth. Population is growing. The town budget is growing. We do have a low tax rate, so we do hope that we can continue to have that. And then there's land availability along the interstate of Highway 85 that will contribute to our future growth. So we're on the verge of major growth when the sewer capacity is resolved. Next slide. As it relates to economic development and growth potential, there are over 1,500 acres of developmental property. Sites are selected or regularly, people are inquiring about potential opportunities for us. So there's 360 acres that you see in the green area here that have utilities and development that are ready. The challenge is being unsure if the owners are willing to sell. There is nearly 1,100 of these acres, which are in the yellow section. Those are on hold until utilities and the infrastructure are in place. Sewer is the main issue of concern. And then the red area is our state-owned. That's 73 acres along the rail line. In addition, there's 1,500 acres that is another 1,000 acres of state-owned land, and it's adjacent to the food line distribution property that you probably are familiar with. There's potential for what we call our mega dream industrial site, but it is owned by North Carolina Agriculture. So the takeaways for this particular slide is that growth is on our doorstep. There are over 2,500 acres of underutilized property that could be developed, with 1,000 of this being that mega dream site that we're hoping for. So we do need economic development assistance to determine the willingness to sell and to get pricing. So no sites are currently listed on the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina. So this is just a pictorial view of what we call our mega dream site. That's our long-term potential. As we talk about business growth, currently we have Cookout Restaurant, which is at 2538 East Line Station Road. So zoning is under review, and that is the former bank that is across from where Walgreens is now. Then there's the Alltech expansion. The parking lot expansion is currently under review with major building expansion on the horizon. And as we delved more into it, we realized that this expansion with Alltech is a lot bigger than we realized. So they're adding a significant addition to their building of over 155,000 square feet to their existing 326,140 square feet. With the land and building improvements of equipment that will be added, they're looking to increase their capacity to produce 25 to 30% more out of the facility that they're currently in. So their total investment for the expansion is approximately $50 million for this particular project. As we look at residential growth, next slide. You probably have heard of the Meritage subdivision that we have done the approval for the concept plan for the rezoning, and the proposal was to build 783 single-family homes near Westline Station Road and Brogdon Road. And there were other individuals or businesses that are looking at the opportunity, but of course this is all contingent upon the I-85 sewer capacity being available. Next, we'll talk about town projects and initiatives. Our performance stage is one that we are excited about. Last year, we added several town-sponsored events, and we would like to be able to have it in a area at our gazebo, and this will be the potential concept for the performance stage. But we've added events such as coordination with s'mores and movie in the park, grooving at the gazebo, and our fabulous Easter egg hunt. We now have our Butner Summer Festival. It used to be called the Chicken Pickin'. It's the first Saturday in June, where we have approximately 6,400 individuals that attend that event, and that's based upon 2023 results. We're looking to grow and add future events as time moves on. This particular stage here that you see is currently in the design phase. We hope to have construction by the summer or the fall of this year. We want to thank the county for providing $70,000 in grants toward this project over the last 2 years through the Tourism Development Authority. Next, we have the Umstead Correctional Center demolition. This was the former blind center when I first moved to Granville County. My brother worked there, so very familiar with that particular building. It was a prison at one time, so that particular project is we've working with Hager Smith, the architect, to do an inventory of the asbestos and to create a design plan for bidding out for the demolition. The asbestos survey is complete. Then the abatement design, we're hoping that that will start in March. And then there will be a demo with a bidding out, which may be in the April-May timeframe. And that process typically will probably take about 6 months for that. As you probably know, the town did own that back in 2019. All right, so as we go to the sidewalk construction, on the left side, we've recently finished 1.2 miles of a sidewalk, and it goes around D Street, 12th Street, and back of our E Street. So that project was $950,000. We're currently now on the right side getting ready to design a new segment on C Street. And that will be 1.3 miles, and the cost will be $1.3 million for this particular project. So we really want our citizens to have the opportunity to get out and walk, and the kids to get out and walk to school. So creating that healthy environment of that live, work, play community is what we're really looking for. As we go to our long-range planning, transportation corridor study, this will be around where Gate 2, we're going to focus on access to industrial properties and the Butner Gateway area. The Central Avenue portion, there's going to be a streetscape focus for creating that downtown concept field. We currently don't have a downtown, as most of you know, so that is something that we're trying to create moving forward. The study concludes where the new roundabout has been funded for construction. So in the next slide, you'll see this is part of our long-range planning, and this is the VZ Road roundabout. It's a $2 million carbon reduction program grant. It's a federal grant through NCDOT. So the $2.5 million project cost, the town will be given 5 years to complete this project, and the project will be led by the town in coordination with NCDOT. The project is intended to provide congestion relief, traffic flow improvement, and safety improvement. So as most of you may know, if you're familiar with this area, when people get from the federal prison, or they're coming from Central Regional Hospital, or coming from Durham, Old 75, that is a very congested area. So we're really looking to make some improvements there. This particular slide is on the West Line Station and Highway 85, Highway 56 intersection realignment. This will be a DOT-funded project, and it's on schedule to begin in 2025. Here is our community, building community within our local community, local events. As you can see, we try to provide lots of activities for our community and our citizens. We do partner with Creedmoor with our fireworks. Coming up in March, on March the 5th, Tuesday, we're going to have a door sign workshop with Me Time Painting LLC. Saturday, March the 23rd, we're going to have our Easter egg hunt. April the 19th, we're having our Groovin' in the Park again. And then April 20th, that Saturday, we're having a Beautified Butner Day, which will be from 8 till noon. So if you're in the area and you want to come help pick up some trash, come on out. Next slide is our partnership opportunities. February 1st, we partnered with the Granville County Schools, so we have a school resource officer for Granville Public Schools in Butner. Yes, yay. TDA and recreation grants for performance stage and shade structures, requesting $10,000 for fiscal year 25 for picnic tables at the athletic park. So I do want to thank the county for $40,000 that was given for fiscal year 2024 for the performance stage and the shade structures at our Butner Athletic Park. Partnerships around development process improvements, that's working with the county, the town, and Saguasa. Economic development support for Southern Granville County, hiring an economic development director, fund NC Railroad commodity flow study for the county, funding for retail study, partnering to fund Placer AI technology. County services to Butner and Southern Granville, that's around the economic development, community centers, and others. Partnership is around advocate for successful completion of Saguasa sewer upgrades. I'm hoping that's going to be on schedule as planned. Advocate for release of state's underutilized properties, and that's around that potential mega site that we were talking about earlier. And then to advocate to NCDOT for transportation improvements and better litter control. So we're trying to do our best with our Butner Citizens Planning Ahead community, which does take care of trash, but as we all know, people sometimes just throw garbage, and so we want to make sure that we keep our town clean. So with that, are there any questions? I thank you for the opportunity to be before you today.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Dr. Mayor Linda. I said, thank you, Dr. Mayor Linda.
Thank you.
All right, next we've got Oxford up.
Good evening, everyone. I was able to change my schedule. Should have been out of here a little while earlier. Mr. Brent Taylor's going to do the presentation, but I wanted to thank everyone that since I've been in office that's working with me, and I really feel the unity and the relationship developing between the city and the community, and also all the mayors I had lunch with a few days ago. One topic I want to discuss, let's bring to the table briefly before I turn over to Mr. Taylor, is in Oxford, we're experiencing a homeless problem. It's seriously, if you look across from Deep South into the woods, it's building a homeless city in there. 2 hours before I got here, we just had to scramble and get Pastor Betts to home me 2 guys in a hotel. So I look forward to working with you guys, and we need to take care of this problem. I know the senator and representative are deeply involved, and we have started a community task force with Bishop Betts and Pastor Morton. So I'll be looking to reach out to you guys so we can work on this issue. So without delaying anymore, so the mayor and Creedmoor don't say we're taking too much time, I'm going to turn it over to Brent Taylor to do the presentation. Thank you.
Well, thanks for putting the pressure on me there to get it done quick. But he's been in office a couple of months, and I've only been here about 9 months myself, so this is my first go-around. But I do want to say that I appreciate very much the commissioners that have got into it, various events, and have been very welcoming and friendly, and I really appreciate that, and I appreciate Drew, what he has done to help me get acclimated here, and how he's pulled the managers together. We meet every month, and even more if necessary, so I want to say I appreciate that very much. You'll see our mission statement. And I can truly say that our council is committed to not only high quality, but also affordability. As you know, with inflation and things, prices go up. When they're making decisions, they think about that. And they think about it with sound planning, not just trying to do it because it's the flavor of the moment, but what's going to be best for us in the long term, and do it to engage the public's trust. The next slide is talks about our potential developments. To get on this list, you either have to be already in construction, gone through the planning process, annexed into the city, or going to be annexed in the city incredibly soon, within the next few months. And so you can see that's potentially nearly 2,500 acres, close to 6,800 units. So as a city, obviously it'll probably take several years, maybe longer to have it happen. But what we're doing is we're preparing for it. Better to be over-prepared than not have planned at all. So that's the approach that we're taking. with our infrastructure. Thanks to our representatives in the legislature helping us secure the funding for the remainder of the Carr Lake expansion. That takes our ability to get water up to a minimum of 4 million gallons a day. We've also, over the recent couple of years or so, have rehabbed 28 miles of water and sewer lines. We're also going to start progressing to now put out the RFQ to double the size of our sewer treatment plant. Because not only what's mentioned now, but there are things that are going to probably come that aren't even on the list. And so we can't wait any longer to prepare for that. We need to do that now. And then also we're going to do more stormwater maintenance going forward. Next thing we're looking at is improvements to our city streets. I get it. Hillsborough resurfacing. I ride that roller coaster every day, and that is on the very quick list, as well as the roundabout. Basically, we're just waiting for the weather to get warmer, and you will start seeing those projects commence. And as we complete water and sewer projects, we're not going to just do them, but we're also going to look at beautification and making our streets look more attractive to not only people that live here, but also people that come visit our city, and try to really put that first-class image there. And also, we're going to be looking forward to doing more resurfacing, and as we do our 5-year capital improvement plan, resurfacing is going to be a part of that. We have recently invested in public safety. Probably the number one thing you heard earlier today about salaries and for public safety personnel. We've invested in that in the last year. We've increased our salaries for personnel to be more competitive. We've purchased more patrol cars and upgraded our fire department apparatuses, and purchased more equipment so when they go into a situation, they are prepared to undertake that emergency. And I do want to briefly mention about the fire on Williamsboro Street. We had a very quick response to that. We ended up putting over 200,000 gallons of water on that fire. And there was a day where that fire would have taken a whole city block. And because of the infrastructure, our well-trained staff, and those things coming together, that we were able to address that fire and no one lost pressure during the day. So those things are paying off, and we appreciate y'all's support in that. Going forward, as our population grows, we're going to be looking at needing to build a new substation, police station, EOC. Not only will this help us improve our response times in the city, but also in the unincorporated areas that we serve as well. And as we kind of determine locations for that, we anticipate you being a partner in that. As mentioned earlier, with the hospital system, and their need to provide ambulance service. If those things work out for us, for you, then we are more than willing to be a partner in that. And like I said, we're going to continue investment in training and increase personnel as development grows. We're going to make more investment in our police department with in-car camera system. And I want to say I am a total believer in the camera system. I like it, one, because it's great for training purposes, but two, it really defends officers when they're out there. I've seen that more times than not, where someone will make an accusation, we pull the tape, see, that's old school saying tape, but the video, and we pull the video up. It's like, it's amazing how professional these guys act. They act, and in some terrible conditions sometimes. So we're going to continue to invest in that, and then some other camera systems to work with fighting crime. Economic development, of course, continue the partnerships that have been mentioned before. One partnership that that really keeps me going is our Downtown Economic Development Corporation. I attended their last meeting, and they said, well, we're going to go ahead and put a list together for you, some things we'd like to see. And I told them at the end, I'm going to need a bookmark for that list. But that's because they're very active in wanting to see downtown not only grow, but provide a diversity of offerings, and they really, really work together. Right now, we're undergoing a branding project, and we're collaborating together on some beautification and decoration projects, so you're going to see a more spiced up looking downtown, as well as our gateways. One other thing that we also do is we look into our neighborhoods, and we've gotten community development block grants of nearly $2 million, and they're doing a number of rehab projects for low-income housing. So we're very proud of that. And then finally, as we look at new development, we're doing things to speed up the process. We're going to be adding more staff and also improving our communications. And then recreation and culture. We are currently revitalizing our theater right now. That's going to have a new light and sound system, and of course, and an advanced ticketing system, so you actually can book your seat. So, but we're going to not only have local entertainment like the Granville Little Theater, but we'll also have entertainment from names that you know, and we believe that's going to be key in development activity to our downtown, and begin more of that arts and culture process. As far as the recreation side, we're going to continue improvements to Lake Devon and utilize that resource. We're going to be looking over the next 3 to 5 years to obtain more open space, including for trails and things like that, and recreation centers, because if the development comes, you got to have something for them to do. And so that's going to be part of our planning process right away. And then we're starting the process of trying to elevate hot sauce. We're going to take it to, it'll be over 2 days this year. And our goal is to make it a more regional or national event. We're looking at the hot sauces across the country. We really think we can take it to the next level and be a leader across the country. So in conclusion, you know, we're going to be measured about growth. We're going to be certainly optimistic, but as we make large investments, we're going to do that in a timely fashion as we hit certain thresholds. So I can tell you that our commissioners are very aware of the things that they need to be doing and planning prudently for them. And but our ultimate goal is to continue to grow and keep that small town flavor where everybody knows your name. Hopefully not all your business, but at least knows your name. And then continue our partnerships, and because we believe that strong cities make for a strong county and vice versa, and we want to continue that partnership there. So, thank you.
All right, any of the board have any of the questions for any of our municipal officials and partners that are here with us this evening? You got one, Commissioner May.
I'm glad to see the municipalities joining with the SROs. It's important that the SROs come from within the community in which they serve. I believe that's vital. And I'm hoping in the future we could take the next step where you can also share some of those costs. And so that would be, I'm not saying now, but it'd be nice to share those costs at some point. But really, this county, I know, would like to put an SRO in every school. We know we're waiting for some state funding that will make that a non-issue, and we hope that occurs. We weren't happy with the first go-around, but let's hope the next go-around we get it taken care of. I know both our legislators are involved in doing that. So I just think of my short time here as a commissioner, what I heard the city say 3.5, 4 years ago, what I'm hearing him say now, it's just completely different. And all of it I hear about is the robust activity going on within the cities, and it's very encouraging, because it's to bring a better life and better quality of life for all of Granville. And also, I'm very encouraged to hear that it's being done and want it to be done in a way that plans and thinks about, doesn't leave the rural character behind as well, because I think it's still very important to many of our citizens of the county. And so I thank you for that. And that's it. Just thank you. Oh, EMS. That's another thing we need to think about. We do understand the county need for that. I think everybody, we'll talk about that later on. But at the end of the day is that, again, look at the dots where a lot of the EMS calls are going, and there might be a way we can partner there as well, to be able to take on some more of the burdens, understanding all the municipalities pay county taxes as well. But as you can see, there's parts of the county that there are not a lot of calls going to, and then in our municipalities, there's a significant amount of calls going there. So just something to think about. Again, it's a way of resource sharing, and a way that we can take on these issues in a way that can allow us to have better and more capable services. Thank you very much, Chair.
All right, might as well go round robin. Tony, do you have anything to wrap up real quick?
No, just to say that I'm really looking forward to the manager's recommended budget this year, probably more so than going back to 2009. There are some things that we can kind of somewhat project, but I'm very interested in seeing after we do all of this, the short term and long term, I want to say, Mr. County Manager, I'm really looking forward to your recommended budget at the end of the day. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We're all gonna go back to the 2009 budget and look at what was so exciting.
Yeah. I just want to thank each and every one of you that came up this evening and gave us this wonderful information. I have not seen the numbers that I saw tonight and what you're predicting and the growth of this county. I think it's amazing if we can accomplish this with making sure everybody has broadband, everybody has water, everybody has sewer and electricity. So as long as we can accomplish that, I think we can accomplish a lot of other good things. So thank you very much for all of your information, and so hopefully we can continue getting this accomplished.
For my second budget retreat, this has been much better than last year. The municipalities did an excellent job, and I look forward to partnering with each and every one of them and hopefully making the county a better place and their municipalities a better place. And I share Commissioner Hinman's, let's get the infrastructure in place. Let's don't outgrow it. Make sure that we have what I would call controlled growth and keep this still a rural county if we can, but with that small town feel.
I'd like to thank each and every one that came out and the report that y'all given us, and to see that we are not standing still. We all really got to realize that by every municipality showed tonight, I don't care if it's 10, you double your sizes, to let us know that we're growing and that Granville County is growing. We just got to keep up with the time. We just got to keep moving on. And thanks for looking not 5 years down ahead. Y'all looking 10, 15, and 20 years down the road. And that's good. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, in 5 years, by the time you get the plan and get started out, you already done past the 5 years. But you're looking ahead of time. You're looking from where you came and where you're going and where you should be. And thank you.
You didn't mention ambulance from Oak Hill.
Oh, don't. I'm still looking for my ambulance in Oak Hill. Okay. I'm
sorry, I couldn't resist. I had to open the door for him. But I want to thank everyone who presented here tonight. Thank you for the mayors and town manager that made the presentations. And, you know, we look forward to working with each and every one of you as best we can. And we're very fortunate. We have a legislative team. We have Senator Bodie, we have Representative Sossman, we have Representative Winslow, who unfortunately couldn't be with us tonight, but these have been our go-to people, and they have helped bring not only money into the county, they have helped bring resources, much-needed resources, and we appreciate all that you're doing and all that you have done. And of course, we look forward to what you're going to do for us in the future. But thank you, everyone. I think it's been I think we've had a really good afternoon and night. And thank you all. I'm done.
Thank you. And then we'll bounce over to staff side if you've got anything, Mr. Manager.
Just a couple of things, and not to belabor what we've all already heard, but I have lived in 7 different places in my life, and I have never been in a place that expresses kind of the pride of place and the sense of community that Granville County and its constituent towns have. And that's a wonderful thing, and that's something to hang on to as long as we can. You know, that kind of that combination of passion and brains will get us a long way, and I think that we're working together well right now, and I think that is something, that spirit of cooperation is something that's worth working hard to maintain. There are a lot of things that, you know, have the potential to drive us apart, and we need to keep our eye on those and resist those and try to keep working well together. I do think a lot about the different things that we hear about growth, and it's certainly not without its challenges. There are a lot of challenges that come without it. But as I was thinking about that, I was thinking about how much better than the alternative it is. I grew up in Michigan, and there are lots of places in Michigan that are shrinking and rusting and falling apart. During COVID, my little boy and I had the opportunity to take a long road trip, and we went through a number of states in the Midwest, you know, and you see the population sign going into the town, a couple hundred people, and you think there can't be that many people left here now, right? There are places all over this country that are shrinking and kind of falling away. And so I think, although we have to, you know, keep working at making sure that we shape the desires and the interests of new people and investors in appropriate ways, it's good that people want to invest in Granville County. That's a good thing, and that's something that I think we can guide and take advantage of while hanging on to the aspects of this community that make us so proud, that make us so passionate. And so I really enjoyed this afternoon, this evening, and appreciate everybody who came and presented about their place, their subject matter, and also who just kind of took care of all the nuts and bolts and help keep us fed and watered and on the screen and mic'd up and so forth. So thank you very much.
Can I say one more thing? Before everybody leaves, can I get all the elected officials together and get somebody to take a picture so we can proudly put on that media stuff that we were here working together?
That'd be great. All right. So with that said, the last order of business will be to take a photo, but we're going to call for the question of the recess, and we will stand recessed until Friday the 23rd at 9 a.m. in this very room. Don't forget, tomorrow night, you still have to work between now and then. You've got Representative Salzman's Mental Health and Substance Use Forum tomorrow at the First Baptist Church of Butner at 6 o'clock. You've got a Park Recreation Greenways Committee meeting in this room tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. You got Campo something or other going on this week, middle of the day, so y'all still have to work, but we're going to stand this meeting in recess until the 23rd at 9 a.m. we would have such a motion.
I'll make that motion, just that way.
Can I just say, I'd like to, I wish that we would coordinate MLK events.
Yes, please.
I wish we would coordinate even other town events, city events, because sometimes they overlap. If we talk to each other, we wouldn't let that happen, and then you'd have more participation.
You have figured out how to be in two places at once?
Well, I have, but it hurts. And especially when you have free hot dogs, I try to go to all of those. No, I think coordinating the schedule would be excellent, and especially with the MLK.
Great. All right, so we've got a motion by Commissioner Hidman and seconded by Commissioner Jay that we stand in recess for this Board of Commissioners retreat until Friday the 23rd at 9 a.m. All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Motion carries.
Now come by your house.
Yeah, when you get to the post, turn right.